and some pickles.
Yeah, it looks good. I was about to comment on that.
Yeah.
It's making me hungry.
I get these big Vlasic pickles from Sam's Club. Have you had these, George?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I love these things. Big
Yeah.
pickle guy, JR?
Not at all.
You hate pickles?
No, I don't like them at all. No.
I was having to get out and go. I'm sorry, Jared. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was going to say I even pull them off my hamburgers. I don't like pickles.
I was having to get out and go to the Walmart over here by me. But now they're instituting this new policy where like only 20%. There's only one person for every 1,000 square feet, which like limits like the average Walmart to like 20% of its capacity. And I'm like, I'm not going to stand in a line 6 feet apart with people to get into a store. You know what I mean? So I got that app, and I'm going to have to start either have them deliver or do the pickup. I
did that today. I went through the Walmart the pickup, and I did Sam's Club pickup today too.
Where I am though, it's like I looked at that app, and it's like your closest available pickup time is in 2 days.
Well, yeah, that's what I did. I knew I was leaving the house on Friday, so I went on Wednesday. And you can, the trick is, log on at midnight. It resets. At least in my area for Walmart.
Okay.
So log on at midnight. You can easily pick a date. They'll have the whole day for 2 days out where you can pick a time. So, okay. This is changing the way I'm shopping. I plan never to go in a store again.
Well, I think this whole thing and the way that, because here's the thing, like you have like, local restaurants now that have had to lay off their staff, their waiters, and everyone else. Like literally, they're my favorite catfish place out in Fort Worth. They have laid off 30 people. They didn't have a choice; they have to.
Wow.
The only 2 people that are still there are the owners, and they're actually cooking the meals themselves. You can still order them and pick up stuff or deliver. I think this is There's going to be a lot more after this is all blown over. I'm hoping there's going to be a lot more people working from home, and that alleviates morning traffic a little bit, at least. Because around here in Dallas, it's awful. Dallas and Fort Worth. And then, and then, that's probably going to change the way we shop forever.
Well, I just don't like pushing a cart. Well, I mean, the first world problems, pushing a cart. Oh, yeah, I'll take that. And never shop hungry. Never do that. But if what I've did is I installed the app on my phone, I'm like, oh, we're out of that. Add it to the cart.
If we can't stop China eating bats, which we're not going to because those things are already open again, then this is going to be a recurring issue going forward, which means we're just going to adapt to. This is grim for the comic book industry because I do think more. I think this exacerbates the thing that JR and I have been talking about for years, where print's dying anyway. This is going to help kill off print all the more faster, because people are going to be less willing to get out and buy stuff. People are going to want stuff that they can get immediately on demand through streaming or download, or B, delivered. We're getting to a point now where people are not going to want to get out of their house. I saw a poll saying that even after the virus stuff's over, people are more inclined. They're going to be more inclined to stay home. This may be the death of movie studio or movie theaters.
Do you have AMC's out in Texas?
Yeah, we have AMC's.
AMC's is nearly bankrupt.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about that before on the show about how the cost to see a movie is continuing to escalate, and we just can't see them anymore. We talked about that last month.
Right.
Well, it's gotten to a point now, even when like the theater started to close, you had a lot of studios start saying, okay, well, this thing that was supposed to come out, we're going to release them on this instead. Yeah. We're going to release it on Disney Plus. We're going to release it on Netflix instead. Yeah. So I think we're going to see more and more of that. We were moving there anyway. We were moving there at some point eventually. This just sort of kickstarted that.
Adam, I went shopping today. We were just talking about this. I went to Sam's Club. I love Sam's ham. So I just had some lunch meat, and I got a Vlasic pickle I cut in half. I love those. So I was up in the kitchen, got a snack right before we started. And I'm muting so you don't hear my ASMR of the pickle, unless you want to hear the ASMR.
I am drinking Sam's strawberry drink. That's what I drink now. I'm addicted to this crap.
Sam's strawberry drink?
Yes,
Sam's never had that.
Well, it's not Sam's brand. The Great Value.
Oh yeah.
Or as I say it, Great Value. You get $1.72. It makes 3 gallons of this stuff. And it's like crack. I can't stop it.
All right, JR, you ready?
Whoa. Let me hang on. Let me get the.
Oh, yeah.
Let me do. Yeah, I've been neglecting my Discord duties. Hang on.
Matt says I haven't been into a theater in years, so that works out for me.
I only go for Marvel movies or Star Wars movies.
$20 a pop on streaming. I don't know if that's going to work either. Like my daughter just said, "Hey, Dad, Trolls 2 is on. We can buy it." I'm like $20, but it just seems bad to buy it at your house.
The movie theaters, though. Here's the thing: part of the reason that it's so expensive to see a movie is not because of the studio; it's because of the movie theater. So if we move to like full streaming, if we just close all the movie theaters down, goodbye movie house, which is sad because Brad loses the Butter Bar, which I never even got to see.
Oh gosh, yeah, the Butter Bar.
Now you can have a Butter Bar in your own home, Brad.
I do.
But once we get to that point, the stuff, if the studios want to keep making money off the movies that they're going to start streaming, they're going to have to be priced to move, which and people aren't going to be paying $20 for something they don't have a physical copy of that they can put in their DVD player.
Yeah.
So if it's streaming, it's going to be, you're going to see studios moving to a subscription package, which good luck with that because I've already got Netflix and Disney Plus. I'm not paying for anything else. Unless you want to start putting stuff on Netflix, you know what I mean? I mean, it's going to start limiting options, but at the same time, it's going to expand them. You know, because I'm not paying $20 for some new movie that comes out on streaming. I'm just not. That's not a thing that's going to happen.
No, especially in a movie that you don't know. Like, what was it? Adam said he went to the theater. He's out $20+ seeing Harley Quinn. It was lousy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't even bother with Harley Quinn.
I didn't either. Okay. Oh, are you ready, George? You got?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
JR, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, coming down in 3, 2. Hey, Crawl Spacers, welcome to our April Spider History with JR. There's JR. What's going on, sir?
I promise an ass-free spider history
Oh, man.
these next 2 months.
Thank you.
If you
There will be
don't
no
know what he's
spider
talking
ass in
about,
spider history.
we did a Friday night fight of the Batman Superman as published by DC, and I thought it was very unflattering of Spider-Man. So we won't talk about that in this episode. But we also have George Half-Hour Berriman right there. What's going on, sir?
Yes, that's my homage to you saying, yeah, I want this. Let's try to get this
I
down to
know.
half an hour and then derailing us with bun talk.
Talking about hams, yes. Okay, so we're going back to April 2003 for this Spider History. Thanks to our friends over at spiderfan.org.
Spider fan. That's right.
They say in April 2003, Amazing Spider-Man number 2 volume 2 number 50 came out, and Peter Parker's Spider-Man volume 2 number 53 came out. And we're not going to talk about these, but Spider-Girl 57 came out and Ultimate 36 came out, but we're just talking about the main 2 books.
That's
So
right. That's right.
take me through ASM 50, JR.
All right. All right. Well, boys and girls, in coming up with April's Spider History, I was thinking, I remembered having such a good time over the last 2 or 3 months making fun of the Clone Saga because we were very Clone Saga heavy. And I was almost worried I almost thought about doing more Clone Saga. Not because it irritates George or anything, although maybe that's a little
It
bit
irritates Zach too.
but it's just because there's so many, it's so bad and there's so many humorous crown jewels that actually when you go to a story of more quality, it's kind of like, well, this isn't just as much fun, so it's like I don't know if I want to move away from the Clone Saga.
There's only so long you can riff with Kane watches.
Yeah. But then again, I hate to repeat myself too much. And as I was going through the episodes, I realized this is the 104th Spider History.
Wow.
If I wish I'd been keeping tabs on that, because if I would have remembered that December was the 100th, I'd have done a little more for that. But anyway, the reason I'm bringing that up is because I realized we had done very little in the 2000s.
Yeah.
So particularly with the JMS era. So I decided to actually come up with a couple of stories, and one of them is actually kind of topical. But anyway, what we'll start with is we're going to start with Amazing Spider-Man Volume 2,
Mhm.
number 50, or I believe it would have been 491
Right.
under the conventional, or is it 490 or 491?
491.
491 under the conventional numbering. Now, as all good Spider-Man fans know, there has been an insidious plot against Mary Jane Watson, brewing probably not long after the marriage in 1987. And there have been no less than three major events undertaken to remove her from the titles and from Peter Parker's life. And each time, without fail, it has been to the series' detriment.
Yep.
And I'm sure that Marvel Comics is exhibits the very definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. Now, the first event was obviously the Clone Saga. The second event was right after the first reboot of 1999, and Bob Harris, at that time the editor-in-chief, who, even after he rampaged and ravaged Marvel Comics, still got a job with DC later. I mean, it must be, comics is an incestuous business, I suppose. I guess it's like athletes, pro sports or whatever. You don't necessarily hire quality, you hire your buds. So he dictated Mary Jane had to be killed off. Something which even Howard Mackey and John Byrne wanted no part of. Even if they don't want to write about her, Byrne in particular said, no, that's a mistake. You don't just write her out of the story. Don't kill her. So when they had the plane explosion in issue number 13, Byrne deliberately inserted the little, the door or whatever to indicate that she probably escaped. So, well, anyway, killing off Mary Jane proved to be another brilliant Marvel move, because then the titles immediately went into a state of despair and gloom for a year. I mean, it was just a dark thing that just overhung the titles. And it wasn't until, and then finally it was revealed that she was kidnapped and held captive by a stalker in a story that Paul Jenkins actually had to come and help Howard Mackey finish, because for whatever reason Howard couldn't finish it. And the thing is, the story itself just ended ignominiously because the stalker walked off and blew himself up, and that was it. So all the 2 years had been built up, and that's what happened. So then, okay, so Mary Jane's back, but J. Michael Straczynski, who had been hired to follow Mackey as the writer of Amazing Spider-Man, decided he wanted to take Mary Jane off the table because he wanted to rediscover Peter Parker and who he was, in spite of there being about 40 stories to figure out who Peter Parker was. But anyway, so after Howard Mackey had a final annual story where the infamous annual where after Mary Jane had spent months in captivity, Peter kept hounding her for sex.
No,
I mean, again, it's one of the it didn't make my top 10 worst stories when I was writing, but it would have made 11 through 20 because it was just a horrible story.
It was bad. It was bad.
Yeah. I mean, it just really, he did. I think he like at least 2 or 3 times he was hounding her for sex. I mean, this woman has been kept basically in a locked room without human contact, but so it just incredible how bad it was. So anyway, in the intervening couple of years, as Straczynski was writing, there were fits and starts of meetings, a trip out to California, which there was culminated in a reunion between Aunt May and Doc Ock. So we get to the point where we are right now, and Peter is flying back from Africa after another adventure in the world of Ezekiel Moreland Shathra mystic totem spider crap, which is what the whole Ezekiel thing was. Anyway, so after he flies from Africa, because Spider-Man, it always works when you take Spider-Man out of New York, or Spider-Man, where he just works great. That's why you take him to outer space or the Savage Land or Africa, because that's where Spider-Man does his best work. So you deliberately take him out of there to tell great stories.
With the exception of Secret Wars, right, George?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Boy,
just wanted to get that in there.
Yeah, well, okay. I was about to say, boys and girls, dig up that podcast and hear what I think about Secret Wars, and then hear what George thinks about me after condemning Secret Wars. That was the first time you heard the term "goddamn monster," I think, used in synonymous with my name. But anyway, so Peter says, Mary Jane and I, we've been doing this too long. We got to have the talk. And so as he was, instead of flying directly to New York from Africa, he wants to make a stop in LA. Well, Mary Jane has the same bright idea. So she decides to fly from LA to New York, but Peter's not in New York because Peter's been in Africa with Ezekiel Schachter Mortem mystic spider totem crap. So they miss each other, because Mary Jane's not in LA and Peter's not in New York. So they wind up flying back. But as luck would have it, a massive storm breaks out and they're both grounded in Denver. And at the very end of issue number 49, they see each other and they decide they have to have the talk. And that leads us to issue number 50. Okay. So we have to understand too, part of what's upsetting Mary Jane is the Shathra, the spider wasp, went on TV and said she was having a kinky love affair with Spider-Man. And Mary Jane is saying, I knew that wasn't true, but it just, and she brings up, this is, I mean, I'm going to say this issue is not a literary classic, but I always gripe about how Peter and Mary Jane are written, how they talk to each other, because married people do not talk that way to each other. And writers, when they talk, when they have Peter and Mary Jane together and they try to have conflict, it's always, oh, Peter, you're putting yourself in danger, blah, 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 blah. I don't understand. So I'm going to smoke. But we get to the heart really of Mary Jane's, I mean, these are on Mary Jane's problems with being with Peter Parker, even though she loves him. It's like, you live a double life. I always have to wonder what else you're hiding, what else you're not telling me. What other secrets you're keeping? And because of this life you lead, when are you going to get bored with me? I mean, I'm just an ordinary person. You're Spider-Man, and just before Peter can answer, obviously we get special guest appearance by Dr. Doom, who in a bit of, in a little amusing tweak of comic book conventions. In fact, I made fun of it during our Clone Saga, where whenever you mention somebody's name or somebody mentions their name and it's in big caps or whatever, it's not really conversational. Well, Dr. Doom walks in and says the same thing. He essentially announces his presence, and one of the security guards says, "How do you do that?" "What? Talking capital letters like that, and silence minion." So, okay, I was amused. But it was funny. It was just, he has to, bring out, state his name big and flashy. And it's like, well, we already know who he is. Why does he got to announce who he is?
Was this, when this right around when Marvel made the switch from the lettering in all caps to doing lower and uppercase?
I have no idea.
I think that may be an in joke on that.
On that? Okay. Well, I mean, it's still funny. To me, because it was kind of like what I was talking about, where it's used for dramatic effect, where, the net character's name is spoken, and in a non-conversational manner in all caps. And it's like, do you always talk in caps like that? So anyway, Doom is in the airport because JMS, being a typical Hollywood liberal, cannot help himself. Because Dr. Doom's going to a global warming conference. All right. Blaming the United States. The only reason I'm here, and I can't do Doom or whatever, but I probably can do Doom better than Julian McMahon. Anyway, so Doom, he's only flying to this conference because of the U.S.'s contribution, because your country burns off fossil fuels and all that. And it's like, well, Dr. Doom, you're smarter than that, Dr. Doom, aren't you? Because you're ignoring India and China's contributions to the problem, in Brazil cutting down all the rainforest. But no, it's just America.
Yeah, America, people love to conveniently leave out everyone except the U.S.
Exactly. Yeah. Not that we're not that we're, again, blameless, but it's like, it ain't all our fault, But this was more than 15 years ago. It's just funny how something just never. Actually, this is 17 years ago. Yeah, so, it's like. But anyway, to give JMS credit, though, he makes his little left wing jab, and that's the end of it. Then he moves on to his story. He doesn't become a focal part of the story. Okay, just then a suicide bomber shows up who wants to kill Doom because of the Free Latveria movement, blows himself up. Peter drags one of the security guards that was leading Doom around, and it turns out to be Captain America. because the security, we're talking about Batman wearing, see, we were talking about it this month, and we'll talk about it next month, actually, where, Batman was tearing off a fake face or whatever, and he was wearing his full Batman regalia. Well, Captain America, of course, is wearing his full regalia under his security guard uniform. So Spidey takes the opportunity to put on, or Peter, of course, he's got his costume. All good superheroes have their costume. Puts on his Spidey mask. Cap revives and tells Spidey that the problem has just started. I mean, this is just beginning. So, as if on cue, an armed terrorist arrives to take out Doom. But Spider-Man shows up to save the day with a little bit of help from Cap. So they get rid of the armed terrorists, but the problem is now they're kind of trapped in the airport started to fall apart, so they're trapped. So they've kind of got to wait for either another supervillain to show up or to get dug out of the rubble. So Spider-Man decides to sit down next to Mary Jane, and she says, "Oh, and by the way, you never do introduce me to any of your superhero friends." And it's like, oy vey, Spidey was like, "Oh, brother," But again, that's a part of the larger issue. Mary Jane trying to figure out where does she fit in Peter's life, and so anyway, so we have several pages of fighting armored terrorists, and then Spider-Man and Mary Jane sit down for another talk, and she says, no, I'm getting tired of talking to in your mask. I want to talk to you. Take your mask off. I want to talk to Peter Parker. So they go aside and they talk, and even though the conversation is a little overwritten, it's an honest conversation. Mary Jane is tormented by the fact that she feels that Peter, being Spider-Man, being a superhero with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men, and a virtually impeccable moral code, simply what use does he have for her? How does he need? She wants to be needed. She wants to, like any other partner.
Is it me or JR breaking up really bad, George?
No, I hear him fine.
Oh, okay. He's just breaking up on my end. That's okay.
It's probably your internet. Is your family watching Netflix?
Yeah.
Probably it.
Yeah, that's probably it. Yep.
So Mary Jane basically is essentially saying, it's coming to the grips of, here it is, she's been in this relationship with this great man, and with all he does, with all the good that he does, just not only, like I said, not only just the superpowers, but the moral code. He doesn't need her. She's useless. She's just a useless appendage. And Peter reminds her that no. I mean, it's one thing to have superpowers, but one of the reasons I do this is because you love me. I do it because of you. It isn't just enough to have superpowers, and to have a motivation. You have to have that support. You have to have something to fall back on, and it's like you come, and Peter just tells her, I need you. I can't be Spider-Man without you. And that's the highlight of the story. I mean, really, that's kind of that's kind of it. The terrorists are defeated. Spider-Man lectures Dr. Doom, and then Spider-Man introduces Mary Jane to Captain America, and Captain America reminds him, just saying, you've got great powers, but don't let your powers and your mission and your secrets overwhelm your humanity.
That last page, that last splash page was, that Brad had up a second ago. That became iconic for a lot of people after bringing Mary Jane back. People that were very rightly sore that the way Marvel had tried to kill Mary Jane off. Or as I refer to it as the Bob Harris assassination attempt. But yeah, that became very iconic. It still is for a lot of people about who Peter and Mary Jane are and what they mean to one another. So this is the kind of thing that Spencer looked at and says, yes, this is what Peter and Mary, this is how important they are to one another. And then you had, you had the whole failed assassination attempt, and Quesada makes the deal with the devil and yada yada and everything. And this is why people are upset about, because this right here is core to Spider-Man.
Yeah,
and I've talked about before how for a character whose whole thing is, great power, comes with great responsibility. There's no bigger responsibility than having a wife and maybe starting a family one day. I mean, that's it. It doesn't get more. JR.
Yeah.
I mean, Brad, I mean, you're both dads. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's being, Uncle Ben's murder and Peter Parker, like I said, Peter Parker's morality and his desire for justice give him the motivation to be Spider-Man. Okay. But it takes people who love him, like Mary Jane, like Aunt May, to give him the courage to go out there and do it. I mean, it's one thing to be super powered, but why does he go out and fight crime? He fights crime because of the people who love him. I mean, they make the fight worthwhile. Otherwise, what is he fighting for?
Yeah.
To be honest, I think what is he fighting for? I mean, yes, to assuage his guilty conscience, obviously, but what is he not fighting for? If fighting to make the world better for the people that he loves.
Yeah.
There's a couple of iconic moments in Spider history that showcase how much the people around Peter are the reason that he does what he does, and I can't do it without them. The whole thing with Aunt May being sick and trying to help Aunt May. Remember when he was trapped by Dr. Octopus? What Amazing Spider-Man
36 or
thank you.
something.
Yeah, where he's lifting off all the stuff off of him. Which is a highly iconic moment for Spider-Man. Like we always talking about how Spider-Man doesn't give up, and this is why. But that whole time he's thinking about Aunt May. Craven, Craven's last hunt. Spider-Man's buried in a grave, and he's like, it would be easy to just lay down and die, but I can't. I have a wife. I have to get out. I have someone who means the world to me and who needs me. I have to get out of this. And that way, the entire time he was thinking about Mary Jane. So, yeah. I mean, JR's spot on with that.
Yeah.
And the one villain who knows this,
Norman knows it. Because and it's this, and of course Norman's crazy anyway, but this is kind of hear me out here, because I've always thought that a villain who goes after somebody's family is a coward. It's like you're not man or woman enough to go after the person yourself. And this is why I thought the Kingpin shooting Aunt May was wrong, or hiring the guy to shoot Aunt May was out of character. I mean, because the Kingpin himself has had people he loved used against him. And so to me, that just felt so wrong that he would have Aunt May shot, because to me, the Kingpin is like, if I want to break the little effer's neck, I'll do it myself. I don't need to take out his family. And so I always felt that moment was wrong, but to me, that's a coward if you take out somebody's family. Mm-hmm. And, I don't think Norman's a coward, but why did Norman use Gwen against Peter? Why has Norman used Aunt May against Peter? Mary Jane? Mm-hmm. It's like, it's relentless. Is it because he's the coward? No. It's because he knows that these are the sources of Spider-Man's strength.
Right.
And he's got his own issues. He has his own issues with Mary Jane. He has his own mother issues and things like that. But he knows that they enable Spider-Man. Without them, Spider-Man doesn't exist. So
this is something that I think Dr. Octopus knows as well. But this is what shows the dichotomy between Norman and Otto, is that Otto's hatred is solely focused on Peter. Solely focused on Spider-Man. He's not going to take it out on Aunt May.
No.
He's not going to take it out on Mary Jane. He will solely focus on Spider-Man, whereas Norman was like, I have no problem with making the people around you suffer. None at all.
Yeah. All right, so we got one more. Oh, go ahead, Jerry.
No, I was about to say, because he knows how important they are to him, to his life as Spider-Man. They enabled him. They're as guilty as he is. In Norman's mind, they are as guilty as he is of there being a Spider-Man. So
our next issue is Peter Parker 53, right? Whoops.
That's right. Peter Parker's 53 to 55.
Or 151 if you count from McFarlane's number 1.
And when I saw the plot of this story, and also some of the guest stars, I said, you know what? I said, I got to do this one. I got to do this one because, first of all, the story opens. The story just opens with one of George's favorites, Fred Myers, none other than Boomerang, on a flight. Okay, on a flight from New York to Sydney. Why? Because he's Australian. He doesn't vote in American elections like Shocker was trying to tell him to. He doesn't sound like the Fred Myers that's rooming with Peter. This Boomerang is an Aussie. He's an Australian. So anyway, he's flying in because
an Australian that plays American baseball.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the guy. That's why he's called Boom. Well, the thing is, though, Australia does. No, I shouldn't say that though. Australia did. I'm trying to remember. They did have some major leaguers, and Australia has usually had a team in the Olympics when they've had baseball has been an Olympic sport. So it wouldn't be that unusual for an Australian to be But it's just kind of funny. It's like, he's a native Australian, but like lately it's like, I don't think Nick Spencer ever wrote him as Australian. But anyway, so he's flying in. He's being irritated by this kid or whatever who's playing with boomerangs. And so they finally get off the plane. And of course, Fred has all his boomerangs. And he says, "Hey, kid, you want to show it? I want to see how a boomerang really works." And he takes out a few birds with it and says, want to do it again?" "No." So anyway, so Peter breaks up a fight. Yeah. So Peter, anyway, we go to Peter Parker. Peter Parker breaks up a fight on a playground, and it's like the schoolyard. And this is Peter Parker's high school teacher phase, which frankly I liked. I thought it was a perfect job for Peter Parker to be a science teacher at a high school, because it allows him to hang around young people. I mean, it's like Peter ages, but then he gets to hang around young people and be invested in their problems and the concerns of kids today. Now, there is one of us here who didn't like it because he thought it aged Peter.
I don't like the teacher Peter Parker. I like the photographer at the Daily Bugle Peter Parker,
which has no function.
That's
Peter Parker as a teacher fits that character 100% so perfectly.
He could work on an online website newspaper, the Daily Bugle. He could do podcasting with Jonah. Anyway,
the whole idea, I mean, I'm glad even before Prince started dying, to me, I was glad. I thought Peter Parker's job as a photographer was stupid, to be honest. I mean, I thought it was like they didn't know what else. Stanley didn't know what else to do with him, what other job to give him. And really the only reason to have a job at the Daily Bugle is because you had such great characters as J. Jonah Jameson and Robbie Robertson.
And plus it threw him at crime scenes is what it did.
Well, hell, all New York was in the 70s was a big slum pit. It was nothing but he wouldn't have to like hear a report of, there's a story I got to cover. New York was a cesspool. Yeah. There was crime everywhere, crime where you walked.
Yeah. The pre-Giuliani New York.
Yeah. So he didn't need to be a photographer to cover crime or run across crime. But anyway, so, people like Brad thought being a teacher aged him too much, and Joe Quesada listened to him. And of course we got one more day, which was the third attempt. Like I said, I mentioned in the early story that, the reboot was the second attempt. The third one to get rid of Mary Jane was Brand New, One More Day and Brand New Day, which again, failed miserably. They tried it 3 times, and it's like you'd think they learned, but they don't. So anyway,
JR, you say that real quick, just to point out, anytime editorial tries to push an edict onto the fan base rejects it when Spider-Man's concerned. They didn't like One More Day, Brand New Day. They didn't like killing Mary Jane off under Bob Harris. They didn't like the clone stuff. You know what I mean? It's like they never learned. They just keep doing it.
So we've got several people in the chat saying DC Marvel Fan Guy says, I miss Peter as a teacher too. SoFlo says, I like school teacher Peter. And Mike, who I worked with as a photographer at my news station, he likes Photog Peter. So Mike wins.
So wait a minute, this guy actually worked with you, so he knows what you like away from the camera, right? He knows I see. Well, we should get his email, George, and get some Brad stories or whatever. But here's the thing. None of them were I hesitate to use the word indigenous, but none of them were legitimate stories to get rid of Mary Jane. Divorce would have been a legitimate story if it was written correctly. I mean, losing the baby, to me, the time to have broke him up was not the clone saga, but when the baby, quote unquote, died, because the loss of a child has destroyed tons of marriages.
Uncle Rizzo says he lived in Brooklyn in the 80s and they stole your pizza, your shoes. It was pretty rough.
Yeah. He did. Like I said, he didn't need to be a photographer to find crime, but,
what about a photography teacher? Well, he's a science. That's his major is science.
Yeah, that allows him to use his.
He's not real,
which has what to do with photography.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, but none of them, is like, well, Peter's a clone, so send him. We get rid of Mary Jane by getting rid of clone Peter. We blow her up in a plane, or Peter makes a deal with the devil. None of them are like a natural end to a relationship, or none of them are, the result of the ultimate end of a crumbling relationship or anything like that. It was not only was a stupid idea to try to get rid of Mary Jane, but they were stupid stories, stupid execution.
Yeah.
So anyway, we go on TV during an interview show, which I think is a riff on Charlie Rose, because the interviewee refers to him as Charles. Of course, I can't tell if it's a riff on Charlie Rose or not, because the art belongs to that awful school of, hey, let's exaggerate certain human features and limbs so much that the people don't even look human anymore.
You could do it back then. You can't riff on Charlie Rose now.
No.
No.
It's a whole different show if you go on Charlie Rose.
Woo! But what's interesting in this conversation is that the interviewee has written a book about the damage that superheroes do, and what purpose do they serve, and how only America seems to have this superhero culture, and how it seems to be predominantly white and male. And as I read this, it's like, God, this was 17 years ago. I mean, it's like, and this element is still harping on that. It's like, let it go, people. So I was just so awestruck when I read that, how familiar this all seems, has seemed. So the scene shifts to a group of rich white billionaires, a Texas oil man, a Hollywood producer, a software giant who's clearly meant to be Bill Gates, and another one talking about their venture to profit from the battles between superheroes and supervillains. Where have we seen that before?
That sounds just like the current storyline. Yeah.
And their equipment. Every one of them has brought equipment to this meeting. Okay. Well, the equipment is in the form of other supervillains. And the equipment of the guy who's putting this together is Boomerang. So the scene switches. Peter's reading to a comatose Flash Thompson, who's in a coma because of good buddy, Norman Osborn.
Yeah.
Put him there. So Peter's reading Lord of the Flies.
Yeah. I'd forgotten about Flash's coma. Yeah.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. Did the Red Goblin kill Flash?
And the Red Goblin killed Flash.
This is twice Norman's gone after Flash, isn't it? Wow.
Well, he went after Flash. Yeah, he went after Flash deliberately this time. But then the second time when the Red Goblin killed him, Flash just showed up at a fight he didn't belong in with a big "kill me" sign on him.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just it was a slot setup you saw coming from a mile away.
I remember during this time period, because it was Jenkins that wrote the story that put Flash in the coma, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Death in the Family, Adam. Death in the Family.
I liked Jenkins' run overall because Jenkins was a breath of fresh air when he got over when he got to over to Spider-Man. Because 2 titles from Mackie a month, where Mackie was clearly needed to be pulled, 4 innings ago.
Yeah.
Was just not cutting it. But I always thought it was a mistake because Harry was dead, and Peter didn't, other than Mary Jane, Peter didn't have another friend he could confide in. And I wanted Flash to finally rise up to that level of maturity, because he'd shown moments of it before. It's like Flash's maturity level bounces around from writer to writer, and it's all over the place. Flash has been mishandled probably more than any other character in the supporting cast.
This is actually written by Zeb Wells. Jonah. I just had to.
This was Zeb Wells. But what I'm talking about is that I thought it was a mistake, because at that point Peter could have actually used a friend, and you could have had a lot of cool scenes between grown up, normal Flash. And again, it makes them even better friends, because they started off as rivals, as not as enemies, but as rivals. But here, as grown-up men, as adults, they find common ground, and they're friends, despite all the things that have happened to them. But no one's really gone into that. We had flashes. We've had flashes of it in the past, but no one's.
Conway tried to do that when they were like roommates.
Yeah, but I mean that was
just one story. That was never mentioned. But where I really saw some potential with it was when Peter David brought Flash out of the coma, and he had lost a lot of his memory, so he didn't realize that he and Peter were close friends. But he brought in Flash as the gym teacher.
Oh, in Friendly Neighborhood,
yeah. So you had Peter the science teacher and Flash the gym teacher, and in a way they were kind of renewing their rivalry,
Yeah.
but also in a way, Peter was trying to bring back that friend of his.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, I said, there's some good stuff here, but of course, guess what? It had to all get shit canned.
Yeah. They threw it away.
It's just the thing. Whenever, they always. This is the thing that irritates me, among others, about all these reboots and is because does it ever make the succeeding stories better?
Yeah.
No. I mean, it's one of those things where maybe sometimes you realize maybe, too much has kind of been built up over the years. We got to kind of strip it away. We got to simplify it. We got to remove some stuff. And if it makes the story succeeding stories better, yeah, it makes sense to do that. It makes sense to reboot. It makes sense maybe to kind of reset things. But at least for Spider-Man, it has never worked. It's always been worse.
Yeah.
So again, this isn't just like old bitter fans yelling at clouds. I mean, the proof is it hasn't worked. So, and again, probably one of many reasons why the comic industry is circling the drain right now. But anyway, so Spider-Man leaves Flash and encounters Boomerang, and so Boomerang's picking a fight, and but something's a little odd. Boomerang's doing a little more grandstanding. He's not going in for the kill or anything like that. And Spider-Man's saying, this doesn't quite feel all right here. So, but anyway, because Spider-Man's an A-list superhero, and Boomerang, George's admiration for him notwithstanding, is kind of a C-list supervillain.
At that time, yeah.
Spider-Man gets a drop on him and webs him to where he he webs up his hands and gets him and pulls on his hands and gets him to hit himself. So, and he says, crikey. See, he's Australian. He says, crikey. But he hits himself and Spider-Man goes, why are you hitting yourself, Boomerang? Why are you hitting yourself, Boomerang? And then he said, God, that's obnoxious even for me. But after he takes Boomerang out, and his spider sense is still tingling, he realizes something's wrong, and he sees a camera, and then he sees a camera on Boomerang's head, and he's wondering what's going on here. And of course, at that point in time, we see his image being transmitted, and into this parlor, obviously, where people are drinking and betting.
I'd forgotten about that. Yeah,
and it's like, huh. Of course, then we get the scrawl to be continued.
Yeah.
So, to be continued, part 2, we start getting the gist of the story.
Right.
Obviously, the people are setting up fights with Spider-Man and betting on the outcome.
Yeah.
Boy. So the Texas Oil Man brings in his champion, who's the Scorpion. And then the Bill Gates guy brings in his champion, who's a robot. And what's funny, and then there actually is an amusing scene between the Scorpion and the robot. They're supposed to go after Spider-Man together. And again, people are going to watch the fights and bet on him. But anyway, so the Scorpion is telling the robot his stories of his confrontations with Spider-Man. And the Scorpion is saying, yeah, there was one time I was really going crazy because I couldn't get my costume off. Then Spider-Man and me did our usual dance, and he took that sucker right off. And the Scorpion goes, wait a minute. Does that sound weird? Are you recording this? It's like, don't you play this back. There ain't nothing weird going on between me and Spider-Man. But as I was reading this and I was thinking, boy, that's kind of funny. And I thought, wait a minute, that sounds exactly like what Nick Spencer is doing. The type of the absurdity, having fun with the absurdity of some of these villains. And I thought, God, that, again, the betting thing on superhero fights, the comic use of the super villains and kind of, playing with the absurdity of them,
Did you remember when you were reading Nick Spencer's? Did you remember the story or just
exactly that's what I referred to it once? I
don't remember this story at all.
It's like, gee, there's nothing. Well, I referenced it when we were doing Clone Saga, and we were doing the Great Game.
Okay.
These rich people were betting on the Great Game, and it's like they've done this before. They did that then. They did, and I'm
nothing new under the sun, is there?
No. And so anyway, the Scorpion confronts Spider-Man and says, Spider-Man, of course, he's playing for the camera. Spider-Man, let's do violence on each other. Spider-Man says, you got to restructure that sentence. That's just creepy. Anyway.
Yeah.
So the robot's a bit chatty. And he said, and he's always telegraphing what he's going to do. And so robot says, I will tear you apart with my metal claws. Spider-Man says, wait a minute, what did I do to you? Why do you want to tear me apart with your metal claws? And the robot says, well, that's a good question. And so the robot thinks about it and then replays basically a conversation that he overheard on all the rich guys as to why Spider-Man, who's been picked as the guinea pig for this service, the streaming service, I guess they've set up, is because he's a loner. He doesn't have any other affiliations. And there's a lot of people who will pay to see people try to kill him. So eventually Spider-Man defeats the Scorpion, starts piecing things together. Who did the art for this? It wasn't Humberto Ramos. That was my first thought. It's not Humberto.
I'm trying to get back to the front page.
Yeah.
First page.
It wasn't a name that we've seen a lot.
Michael O'Hare. Michael O'Hare, it looks like. I've never heard of Michael O'Hare.
So part 3, wait, at the end, part two is like, well, of course, the other guy, they can't be Spider-Man. So the other guy is going to bring his champion. Okay. And there's a shadow. And the shadow looks ominously like a certain vigilante, a competing comic book company, who takes his motive from a mammal of the order of Chiroptera, whose forelimbs are adapted as wings, and who are the only mammals capable of true and sustained flight. Okay.
Is that a Batman reference? What are you?
There we go. It looks like the last panel. Find the last panel in that issue. You'll see the shadow, and it looks like it looks like it's supposed to be Batman.
Okay, I found it. Okay, yeah, that does look like Batman, doesn't it?
There you go.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's just kind of it's just funny. The choosing this particular month was fortuitous, considering the other conversations we've had. Again, spider history, always topical, always on the mark. And fair and balanced, and always the truth. Nothing made up.
Matt wants to know Boomerang's first appearance. Do you guys know it off your heads? I think it was in Iron Man, honestly.
Iron Man?
Yeah, I don't think it was
or Hulk. Actually, I
think
think it was Hulk. I think it was Hulk Tales to Astonish.
We've talked about it here before. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Let me look. Yep. Tales to Astonish. Here, I'll pull it up for you. Tales to Astonish number 81, 1966. So he
he's been around a lot longer than
Stan Lee and Jack Kirby creation. Boomerang. There you go. JR, I always ask, was it a good month? You had an epic...
Hang on, the story. Hang on, story's not over yet. Just about done here. So anyway, part 3, the Batman turns out to be the Rocket Racer in a souped up costume.
Are you kidding me?
No.
That's Rocket Racer. Oh, that's hysterical.
That's Rocket Racer. Well, find the comic because there's a panel that we have to reference. So anyway, so Spider-Man takes the robot in the third part to the Baxter Building, and so Reed Richards is able to sweet talk it into letting him fix it or play around with it, and he figures out that the robot's been has been broadcasting about 20 different locations. So Peter goes undercover pretty unsuccessfully, and it lays down a $5 bet on Spider-Man for the next battle. But he does that to figure out who's coming after him and when. And so when the Rocket Racer comes after him, but Spider-Man doesn't fight back and basically lets the Rocket Racer beat him to a pulp. And of course, Spider-Man knows exactly what he's doing. The Rocket Racer isn't in on it, but Spider-Man does it for a reason, because everybody who's sitting there betting on Spider-Man to beat the Rocket Racer, because the Rocket Racer is considered a loser. Everyone's betting on him, and Spider-Man's still in the fight. So all these people who bet on Spider-Man now, not only are they losing, but they think the fix is in. So they all turn against the guys who are running this operation. And, the Rocket Racer sits down with Spider-Man and says,
took me forever to find it, but look at that redesign of Rocket Racer. Oof, that's awful.
Yeah. Yeah. And looky there at the, look at the next, but there's actually kind of a joke at the end. Near the end, go to the near the end of the story when the Spider-Man Rocket Racer fight is done and Spider-Man revives and he says "Mama," and it's a very, very, very bad costume joke, reminiscent of Batman and Robin. So I don't know if you can find
there. Oh my, that's awkward.
Yeah.
that's
very there, and then like the
Oh,
Rocket.
so there's nipples on the suit like in Batman Forever. I see.
and the Rocket Racer says, "I didn't make the damn thing."
Yeah.
But anyway, so the Rocket Racer says, man, I really wasn't going to kill you. He says, I really didn't want to kill you. That's I'm not a great guy, but I was not do that, and I think in history has kind of proved that the Rocket Racer feels a certain kinship with Spider-Man, because Spider-Man could easily have pummeled his ass any number of times and thrown him in jail, but Spider-Man would give him another chance because he realized some of his motivations for why he did what he did. Anyway, so the Rocket Racer gives him, Spider-Man, the address of the guy's headquarters who are running this scam. And so, he goes in and beats them all up or whatever and saves the day. But the one of the bad guys said something interesting, and it was never followed up on, obviously, because this was just a guest shot by Wells. Because Peter Parker had been Jenkins' title. And it was going to be rebooted to a new Spectacular Spider-Man with Jenkins. So this was just running out the last few months, and Zeb Wells was just guesting for this story. But something that one of the lead bad guys said, which almost kind of ties back into Mark Millar's later Marvel Knights. He said it was never about really the money; it was about the power and the control. He says we businessmen, we can control everything except you people and your capes and your vendettas or whatever. We want to get in on that world. We want a piece of that. We want to control that. So, but I thought that was kind of interesting because, like I said, it's a sort of reference showed up in the Millar Marvel Knights Spider-Man reference. But anyway, so the last issue or the last page is all the bad guys appearing before Congress, and the robot is given testimony, and Peter is quite amused by the whole thing. Now, the story is 17 years old, but its style, its manner suggests Nick Spencer and what Nick Spencer is doing with Spider-Man and with the villains. And it made me wonder if Nick Spencer and Zeb Wells are the same person using different names. I honestly read this story, boys and girls. I mean, it reads like a Nick Spencer Spider-Man story. Almost exactly like a Nick Spencer Spider-Man story.
Did you like that story?
You know what? I the first time I didn't. It's an okay story. It's too long. If it had been done in one or two parts, I think it would have been much more effective. A quick hit here and there. It's okay. It's not a bad story. You were about to ask me if this was a good month. Yeah, it's an okay month. The Great Mary Jane story brings back Mary Jane I would say permanently until one more day. Right. But and then from then on, Straczynski handles Mary Jane very well, and he handles the marriage very well.
Yes.
And this was an okay story. It was always, Zeb Wells. Until until One More Day and Brand New Day, and the stories he wrote after that were crap. But before that, it was always nice to see Zeb Wells do a Spider-Man story because he did good Spider-Man stories. He was the guy who wrote that Behind the Mustache story about Jameson. That was a very good story.
No doubt.
So it was a decent month. It was a decent month, but it was just funny reading this about how certain issues, like I said, not just the style, but even the white male thing. It's like, in the global warming thing that Straczynski brought up, it's like these
20 years later,
we're still they're still hammering on these.
Man, I just don't remember. I remember the Straczynski issue. I don't remember this one at all. Do you, George?
No. Which one? Hold it back up again.
The Zeb Wells one, where Rocket Racer was redesigned, and
no. I remember the Rocket. I got sunflower seeds in my mouth. I remember the Zeb Wells, or not the Zeb Wells, but the Rocket Racer redesign, but I don't remember the story itself.
Me neither. Interesting things in the chat. Max over on Facebook, longtime crawl space visitor, first time commenter, and he said, "Hold on,
we have a bell to ring when somebody's a first timer or whatever."
Ding, ding, ding.
Where did he?
There's your bell.
Where is his second post? I've got so many. He first joined the crawl space when he was 10. He is now 29. My goodness, Max. Well, welcome. Finally, I'm glad you could finally be on the show. That's really fun. Let's see.
I almost wonder if it's like, what, were your parents not allowing you to comment before? Is that it or something? And now you escaped from your parents' basement. Now you can comment.
Max, what's really interesting? Zach is doing a spreadsheet, and he's adding up how many episodes JR has been on, how many histories we've done, how many fight clubs. and he's gonna add up the time that we've invested in this show since 2006. How many hours we've been doing this show, and that should be an interesting experience to see how many hours we've been doing this, fellas.
Either interesting or sad. One
Probably
or the
all.
other.
Hershey
yeah.
Russell Osiris had a question for you, Brad, in the chat. Did you say?
I see it. The most recent Spider News is not on the Crawlspace YouTube channel. Did you take it down for editing? I did take it down. I do edit, JR. You know I do. A little bit, the front and the back end. Yeah, I took them down because the Patreon members get the episodes 2 weeks early, and as a perk for helping support the podcast. And once the 2 weeks are over, then I put it out to the public. So you will see those episodes immediately now if you want, if you join patreon.com/crawlspace. But after the 2 weeks is up, then I put it out to the masses again. So let's see. Man, we have a lot of comments coming in. I've forgotten the Secret Empire. But yeah, I remember Boomerang's first costume was indeed ridiculous. Matt wants to know our thoughts on Jerry Conway's Spider-Man. I think it's universal way. All three love Jerry Conway's Spider-Man, right?
His amazing Spider-Man run. When he came back for Spectacular and Web
Yeah.
years later, he'd lost a little something.
Yeah,
But no, he helped define Spider-Man. For,
exactly.
I mean,
Let's see. I'm kind of ready to move on to the next one, aren't you, JR?
all right. Yes, I am.
The drug one. Okay.
right.
We're in a new month, so let me get my notes up here. 30 days have passed.
God, I'm fat. I gotta lose weight. I tell you, it's been a long year.
It's only April.
No, I mean, I'm just thinking the last 12 to 18 months. My workload at work got bigger, and it's like, and I've gotten bigger along with it.
Can you work from home?
I have been working from home the last 3 weeks. I hate it. Well, it's you stop. You see, I never liked working from home because you lose, particularly when you do it so often. You lose. It's like the difference between night and day. You know, like you're in isolation or whatever. And if you don't know the difference between night and day are coming, you know, you get off your rhythm. And like being at home all the time, let's all do drugs. Yeah. Don't do drugs, boys and girls.
Do
Don't
not. We're
don't do alcohol. I try to tell my kids this. You know, it's like don't. I mean, yeah, you're going to have fun for a while, but after you hug the porcelain god a few too many times, no. But they got to learn.
and that was a PSA by JR. Still trying to find Amazing Spider-Man on Marvel Unlimited so I could show you a couple.
No, I mean, it's like you know, if you're home all the time, you lose that break between going to work, coming home, kind of resetting your mindset, and you know, like okay, I'm at work, and then I'm in this mindset. Now I'm going home. Now it's like it all runs together, and my sleeping patterns are messed up. And
I think it was Kelly on.
Can't wait for this team.
Kelly last night on the show when we did the cosplay interview, she goes, "Welcome to March 40th." I thought that pretty much sums it up. JR, you've talked about this on Marvel Unlimited, how hard it is to find stuff. I can't find Amazing Spider-Man 1962. I can find these.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to go to The Amazing Spider-Man.
Forgot the.
Which is funny because during the Straczynski time, you had to find Amazing Spider-Man.
There it is.
So
it was the.
Yeah. For like
That's
the first volume, it's The Amazing Spider-Man. Then like the second volume, it's up at Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then later, it's The Amazing again.
Yeah.
I don't like Marvel. I mean, I like Marvel Unlimited, but it is not the most accessible, user-friendly.
The app is much easier to use than the desktop, which is usually the complete opposite.
True. I have a Kindle, and that's about the easiest. I can't do Marvel Unlimited on the phone. I can't do it on a laptop, but I can do it on the Kindle. Do it on the Kindle. So.
I can't sort by oldest. So, oh my God. Okay, give me a minute, JR.
That's all right, because I'm going to say that I'm not using unlimited this time. I am using
Oh, you got
very,
you got an old trade, yeah.
very special trade. Very special trade.
What is that? 97? Is that what issue it is?
90. Oh, the issues. It's
Yeah.
96 to 98.
96, 90. Okay, almost there. I'm in the Stern era. ASM 246 on the website. Give me a minute, folks. And their website's not loading that easily.
Yeah, Adam Winchell, though I don't miss my long ass work commute. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm never late for work now because I just roll out of bed and go to work, but it's still, I used to like stop for something to eat, stop for breakfast or whatever. There was a routine, and now that's completely shot.
Oh, there it is. There it is. It's easier to Google it. Okay, read. Oh, no, I don't want to add that to my library. I want to read it. Read now. Boom, I found it. Or load. Did Marvel Unlimited update this week? Are either one of you on Marvel Unlimited?
Yeah, I've got Marvel Unlimited. Yeah, they did. There was a reference to them updating some more, putting some more Spider-Man on.
Well, they put some old specs. Yeah, they haven't added any old issues this week. There's a Wolverine 24. Oh, no, that's currently reading. Sorry. Hold on. Nope. It's all new issues this week. They haven't. Last week they added some new
CSI
spec.
photographer Adam Winchell. I thought it would be cool for Peter to be a crime scene photographer. That might have that would have been interesting to see them actually do something like that. But it seemed like maybe they tried once or twice and gave up on it.
Yeah. Are you going to be on tomorrow night's show, George? George is not, unfortunately. JR is. I am.
Yeah, I think so.
We've got.
It's just reviews, right? You're not doing news, right? Because there's
no. It's just we in all these years of the show, I've never skipped 2 issues of Amazing. We forgot 2 issues.
See, it's the quarantine. You just
I know.
See, it's messed you up. It's messed you up.
So I got JR, I got me, I got Kelly. Ashley, I don't think ever replied. I got Zach, Javi, and I think that's it. I'm not sure. Anyway, I think that's who the cast is tomorrow. Okay, we ready? I've got the issue up. Let me share my screen.
What did you think of the Amazing Gog, George? You have to.
Oh yeah, George. What was your GOG thought? I gave it a D.
No, I liked it. I mean, it's not a Spider-Man story, but
Exactly.
But no, I mean, I liked it. I didn't hate it or anything. It was interesting.
What would your grade be, George?
Probably a B plus.
B. I gave it a D. $4 and Spider-Man appears as bookends. I don't like it.
No, I don't either.
I think JR was along with me. Let's see.
Well, part of it, if the rest of the whole there wasn't so much, it just feels so stretched out anymore. In another time period or whatever, maybe it wouldn't have seemed so bad. But like the Kindred story, everything is being stretched out. Nothing's coming to a resolution, and it's like we're just. Yeah. And so when something like that happens, it completely interrupts the entire flow of the.
Yeah. Jonathan, you asked what time our podcast is tomorrow. 9:00 tomorrow on Facebook and YouTube. If you follow our social media up on Instagram and also Facebook, I've made some images. Also on the front page of the Crawl Space, I made some images teasing to watch. So we have had Thursday, Friday. It's 3 days of podcasting the last couple of days. So you're getting quite a lot of us. Last night's cosplay episode was a lot of fun. I don't know if you guys caught that. That was a fun one. You were in bed. There was a really, really funny story about this guy who is he works at Disney and he's in Japan now, but I think he was in Paris, and about interacting with kids as Spider-Man at Disney. It's really cool. So, okay, let's do the intros. You guys ready? Okay. Coming down 3, 2. Hey, Crawl Spacers, welcome to our Spider History for May. Welcome, JR.
Glad to be back for May. April showers bring May flowers.
Are you out of your quarantine yet in May?
No.
Yo, you're
No.
George. Have you left the house in 30 days?
Very, very sparsely.
Considering that the governor of Ohio, I think, said Ohio was locked down until April 30th, I think I can safely say that no, I will not be out of quarantine in May.
Well, for this, we've got an infamous story, JR. I mean, this one probably made the media. Stan Lee fought the Comics Code, or just said, "Forget you." We're reviewing the famous Spider-Man drug issues.
Yes. Ever since after I did Craven's Last Hunt, and I decided that sometimes Spider History was going to focus more on storylines than just every issue of the month. The first request that came out of the box, and I forget who this was. If you're there with me, I apologize. But anyway, I said, do the drug stories. So I said, well, I will when they come up. So May has come up. The thing is, I mean, the story behind this story is so well known. I mean, it's not new. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. That in 1970, that at that time Richard Nixon was in the White House. Tricky Dick, and
what was that again? Okay, just checking.
I'm not correct.
Did this come out in May? Is this a May book?
No.
Oh,
I mean, none of these come out in the month. They all come out. But anyway, so in 1970, the Nixon administration, it was at that time, it was the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, because it took Jimmy Carter, and his suck it up to the teachers unions when he said, "I'll create a separate Department of Education, and that'll make education in the United States all better," or whatever. So, whatever. But anyway, back then it was the Department of Health, Education.
Yeah.
Wanted to Stan Lee, they wanted to do an anti-drug story. He said, we want you to reach kids or whatever. Kids read comic books, so we would like you to get an anti-drug message out. Stan said, that's a pretty good idea, and but the problem was the Comic Code Authority at the time, which again is was a holdover from or originated out of the Seduction of the Innocent in the era, forbade the mention of drugs. Even you couldn't say drugs are bad, because you couldn't say drugs at all. You couldn't even
refresh me. Is the Comics Code a government authority?
No.
Is it a government? Okay, it's just a private group.
It was a private group. I don't even know if it existed.
It was the industry's attempt to self-censor themselves, so the government wouldn't.
Because I was thinking it was two government entities fighting with each other.
No. It was basically the government saying, we're going to start looking at these damn comic books, and the comic book industry was like, our bad. Well, let us clean up our own backyard first.
That's right.
That's what the code was.
So this was like DC, Marvel. Harvey, I guess, was a comic book company, and Dell and all the older ones. Yeah, they all said these are our standards.
And the only person really fighting it was William Gaines, and it was a interesting story.
Yeah, and actually the comic one reason from what I understand, and George probably knows this better than I do, it was really William Gaines's shock and horror stories and stuff that were the target of this. Now Wortham kind of came out from left field with his Batman and Robin and Seduction are gay and the Seduction, but it was really William Gaines in the horror comics, and the comics industry kind of rolled along with this because they all wanted William Gaines out of business. Yep. Isn't that kind of right?
More or less, yeah. That's that.
Was Gaines the horror comics?
Tales from the Crypt.
Tales from the Crypt stuff. Okay, got it.
EC Comics.
EC. Yeah.
Now, exactly what did they have against Gaines? Out of curiosity, I don't quite remember the story, but there was, they kind of, like I said, they rolled over because the government was doing their dirty work for them. They wanted Gaines out of business.
Well, it was partially, from the comics industry side, it was partially distribution as well. I haven't read about it in a long time, but I remember that as a lot of the Comics Code stuff was like, okay, like this stuff, if it doesn't have this, it can't be carried in like supermarkets, etc. And so there was that side of it as well. But mainly it was a bunch of, it was kind of a social cause. You had mothers, preachers, whatever, upset about the content of these and for the time, these comics were pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
I mean,
what ice picks going into eyeballs, and it was, but kids love that stuff.
Random internet weirdo in chat says after then Marvel and DC did their monster comics in the 70s.
Well, see, now Marvel had to get more creative about it because Marvel,
yeah,
Marvel,
they couldn't say zombie, could they?
they, I don't remember about that, but like they couldn't have a vampire in their comic for the longest time.
Yeah. Then
So
Morbius, yeah.
That's why Morbius was a vampire.
Yeah, living vampire.
Living vampire, yeah.
Yeah.
And Cantu, the living mummy. I mean, you know, it stretched it for a little while, but eventually that stuff kind of laxed, and they were able to do stuff like the Dracula comics with Marv Wolfman, Frankenstein, Man Wolf, stuff like that. Of course, by then EC was already long out of business.
Did this comic loosen up the comic code regulations in that they could introduce the monsters? Is this part of it?
This isn't the part of that. No.
Oh, okay.
No, but its credibility took a hit.
Yeah.
But essentially, so the department, like I said, the government, as stated.
Yeah. When the U.S. government comes in and asks you to do something, and then you're like, I can't because we can't get it distributed. That's,
exactly.
Like, why isn't that silly? Sorry, JR, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
Yeah.
And Stan, so Stan took it to the Comics Code for approval, and they said, well, we're not going to approve these issues. And Stan went to Martin Goodman. Martin Goodman said, publish them anyway. Screw it.
And do you think parents even looked at that little bitty box on the cover? Like I don't think people look at comic books like they do movie ratings. I don't think.
I can honestly tell you, my mother did not.
Mine didn't either.
My mother bought our comic books for us. My brother and I were. My brother is 2.5 years old, and I've told this story. My brother was a Hulk fan. Brother was a big Hulk fan, and but it was like me. I like Spider-Man and Star Trek. Never grew out of that. But my brother, he got. I read all kinds of stuff because he would get them. He loved Werewolf by Night. He got Rom. Now I like Micronauts, so I did like Micronauts under Bill Mantlo. But he liked Rom. He liked. X-Men. I mean, because I remember he got. It's like but he didn't take care of anything. He let things rot and tear because he had the first appearances of Wolverine. He had Days of Future Past. He had, I think, the first giant size X-Men. He had a fortune that he literally tore to pieces. But that was my brother. I mean, but anyway, but Mom always bought him, and I honestly got.
Do you have anything besides Spider-Man you picked up?
Very, very little. Spider-Man, Star Trek, very, very little. I mean, I got like some of the when the Dark Knight Returns. I got some of. I mean, I didn't get the first edition of the first two, but I think number 3 and number 4 parts. I got the first edition of those, and because that just was like. I mean, well, Frank Miller, The Dark Knight. Wow, I mean. It's one of those things where I try to tell Spencer, my Spencer, not Nick Spencer, but my Spencer, just why certain things resonated back then. It's just kind of hard. Now they're trite and tropes, and everybody's redone it so much that no one realizes how great it was when it first came out, because it's been ripped off. Yeah. But anyway,
let's get to the book.
No, that's what I was doing. I was about to.
I'm so sorry. My bad.
Yeah, the comics. So anyway, the Comics Code Authority, Lee defied it, and so they had to. I mean, they realized how ridiculous that stance was, and of course DC, hopping on the bandwagon 2 weeks later or whatever, had the Speedy story, and you have this extremely graphic cover of Green Arrow and Green Lantern and Speedy. What's wrong with Speedy? He's on drugs. Stupid. Anyway, so this story is being brought to you by the Spider-Man versus Green Goblin trade.
What year was that? That looks like it was 90s.
It was published in 1995.
There you go.
And I bought this in April of 2001 from Comic Quest in Evansville, Indiana. I remember that vividly.
Nice.
Because my dad was sick and I was visiting him. And after one evening, I said, Dad, you know what? I'm going to go to the comic book store and I'm going to buy myself some comics.
There you go.
And he said, you should, which is, you had to know my dad or whatever, but it was just, he didn't have much use for my brother and my interest. And it was just kind of ironic. And, he said, yeah, go buy yourself some comic books. So anyway, story opens with Peter Parker coming back from London, because remember, boys and girls, Captain Stacy died in issue number 90. Gwen got all pouty and shit. and but it's stupid kind of pouty. I mean, stupid kind of pouty, blaming Spider-Man, and it's like, because even though Doc Ock was on that chimney, and even though when the bricks came falling, Captain Stacy put himself in that, by saving that kid. Captain Stacy put himself in harm's way and died as a result, but it's still Spider-Man's fault. Now, I guess then again, logic never got in the way of a comic book story. I guess if it did, we wouldn't have comic book stories. So anyway, Gwen has, and of course, Peter just doesn't have the balls to tell Gwen about, it's just funny. I mean, any of us who've been in a serious relationship with a woman, you keep a secret from a woman and she finds out.
You're done. You're done.
You're done.
You're done.
Toast. It's just, you don't. And it's like, so Peter thinks he can keep, no. It just, when you go back and you read these stories, of course, then again, I guess we have to realize that even though Stan wrote them old, theoretically, they're still 18 and 19 years old and probably aren't making sound judgments. But it just, you look back and you go, no, there is absolutely no way he would not tell her that he was Spider-Man. But anyway, so because Peter doesn't propose to her. See, Gwen wanted Peter to propose to her. Again, you're 19, folks. But again, that was more normal back then.
Yeah.
So she goes off to London. She goes off to live with George's, at that time, older brother, Arthur, who then came back 25 years later at the very end of the Clone Saga as his younger brother, Arthur, without the British accent. So she goes, lives with Arthur, and Peter's going around, Gwen's gone. He goes crying in the Daily Bugle, and Robbie says, Peter, why are you crying? I can't say Gwen anymore. And, she moved to London. I can't afford to go. And Robbie said, I'll tell you what, I'll pay your way, take some touristy, artsy fartsy pictures of London or whatever, catch the Queen taking a crap or whatever out in Buckingham Palace. We'll pay your way. And Peter says, well, that's a very good idea. Of course, he flies there, and of course, terrorists attack, and Spider-Man has to show up. And then Peter says, oh, no, I can't see Gwen now because Gwen will put 2 and 2 together, and she'll figure out something that she should have figured out months ago anyway if she had any brains in her head, which she didn't. So Peter goes back and mopes, and he flies. So anyway, the issue starts. He flies back. He brings a picture to Robbie, and Robbie looks at these pictures of Spider-Man in London and says, wow, you're very lucky to get these, Peter. And then Peter's going, oh my God. He's like, I was so worried about Gwen figuring out who I was, and I forgot about Robbie. And so to me, this, though, was interesting, because to me, this is when Robbie figures it out. He puts to me, because he and George Stacy had been talking about Spider-Man and trying to figure out, what his motivations were, who he was, things like that. And I mean, to me, this, I think it boom, the light went off in Robbie's head, and he realized exactly what was going on, and that Peter was Spider-Man. He may have suspected before, but now I think he knew for sure.
Yeah.
And
I'm cool. Are you cool with Robbie knowing? Or do you just like it alluded to that he knows? Do you think he should know like Jonah?
Oh, he knows. But
I think the first time I picked up on it that Robbie knew was Craven. And also a little bit of Conway's run.
Known for years.
Yeah,
well, he's known for years. I think Peter has always suspected he's known for a very long time. But in the Craven story, though, where it was kind of like Mary Jane knows he knows. Knew he knew. And it was kind of like she said, that's why she went to see him, because she thought that she could talk to him about it. But then, but then she ran out and she said, even if he does know, I can't tell him.
Yeah.
But then near the end of the Clone Saga, when Peter and Mary Jane come back, and Ken Ellis is going to, have this picture of, because Ken Ellis put things together fairly quickly. Peter goes out to Oregon, Spider-Man shows up in Oregon, Peter, and so Mary Jane goes to Robbie to kill the story. Why would Mary Jane go to Robbie to kill the story unless Mary Jane had a pretty good idea that Robbie knew? But anyway, but Robbie could never tell Peter, because it was like, Robbie's sending him out for jobs and stuff. And Robbie was always a fairly ethical newspaper man. And if he ever, so that was a line Robbie couldn't cross, but it makes sense that Robbie knows. So anyway, so Peter says, well, I've been, I figure I need to get my mind off my problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my yellow fringe vest and go hang out at ESU again, and then I'll make everything better, because I love hanging out in my yellow fringe vest. Not know if Brad is brought, can bring up the, but it's like, he kind of he looks
real
like
quick before that. I was thinking you'd get to this panel. Maybe it's the coloring, but the colorist on Gil Kane's pencils made Norman look like the Hobgoblin. Look at that. See that orange on him?
I'm trying to see here if it's the
Hell, maybe that's where they came up with the idea.
I know. I mean, I'm just re-looking at this years later. I'm like, that looks very Hobgoblin-y. But
yeah, it's kind of funny. This particular printing, he's yellow.
Here,
but the background
I'll
is
blow you
orange.
up. Let's see it. Let's see your panel.
I'll show you mine if you show me
Oh
yours.
yeah. Yours is very yellow. Mine was orange. Very Hobgoblin-y.
So anyway, so we do.
Oh, you want to see Peter in his yellow outfits?
Yeah, it kind of makes him look
there
like.
you go.
Yeah, it looks like it makes him look like an effeminate Matt Dillon, Sheriff Matt Dillon, that is, from Gunsmoke. So anyway, so Peter, says, well, I need to dress like a hippie from this, hippie, and it'll make me feel better. He runs into Harry, and Harry says, "Hey, Pete, it's like we're all going to the theater tonight because Mary Jane's got a big role, her first big role. She's going to be in an off-Broadway theater. Off-Broadway, by the way, is seating capacity of 100 to 499. Thank you, Spider History, for providing more culture. But anyway, so Peter goes, I can't go, Harry. I ain't got any money. Harry says, well, you would have money if you take that job my dad keeps offering you. And of course, that gets Peter thinking, so he's like, this is Peter's segue into exposition, a page-long exposition of, the kind of the history of doing Spider-Man and the Green Goblins, because, well, I can't take a job with Norman because Norman knows,
Right.
But see, and for some reason, of course, Norman's in his amnesia period, you see, because this is after, actually is after the first Spectacular Spider-Man magazine, #2, which is reprinted later in king size. So this Goblin story takes place after that Goblin story. For some reason, after Norman was revealed as the Green Goblin stopped being just this evil criminal. And for whatever reason, Stan decided that he was just a mentally ill man who couldn't help himself, becoming the Green Goblin.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until they brought Norman back for the Clone Saga that Norman Osborn was definitely, there was no more amnesia, no more split personality. Norman Osborn was an evil SOB. That's why he was the Green Goblin. He wasn't the Green Goblin because he was a more mentally ill dude. But anyway, so Harry says, you know what, Peter, I'm tired. You know what? I'm tired of you making excuses for not taking this job. I'm going to tell Dad that you're going to take it. So then Peter says, well, you know what? You're right. Maybe I should just stop, worrying about this and go and take that job and put myself, that's what I wanted to do, research, science, or whatever. So he goes to Oscorp, which is not really Oscorp then. It wasn't Oscorp until the 90s cartoon.
Well, what was it called now? Osborne Industries?
It was alternatively called Osborne Industries or Osborne Engineering or Osborne Chemical. Any number of things. And then in the 90s cartoon, they called it Oscorp, and that's what it's been ever since. And,
that's true.
And so anyway, he goes to see Norman, and Norman says, well, that's great. And I need bright young people like you. And so we'll work out your schedule and get back with me. So, Peter says, things are looking up for me. He runs into Aunt May. Aunt May and Anna Watson are going to go see Hair. The musical Hair, and Aunt May's going to be a slinger, instead of a swinger. But then, of course, it comes time for, Hair was a big deal back in the 70s or whatever. Yeah. They took off their clothes and things of that nature and stuff. So, what was I'm trying to think if this was the era of old Calcutta too, as well. But anyway,
me ahead with hair. Long, beautiful hair.
JR talking to two bald guys about hair. I love it.
So anyway, here now the story's getting serious because Peter hears the sirens or whatever. He's got to change to Spider-Man. And, this is where we start getting into the issues here. He sees this guy. This guy is, singing Freebird, even though Freebird doesn't get recorded for another couple of years. It's like I'm as free as a bird now, and so this guy,
he's high.
He's high. So he jumps off. Spider-Man catches him. They save his life, and then Spider-Man goes into this I sure hope that poor guy will be all right. Any drug strong enough to give you that kind of trip can damage your brain, but bad, you know. And it just, I just like it. Spider-Man's not talking to anybody, you know. I mean, he's by himself, but you know, he's got to go. You know, we got a lecture now because this is what Stan was. This is what they ask you to do.
Yeah.
You know, how do you warn kids? How do you reach them? My life as Spider-Man is as dangerous as any, but I'd rather face 100 supervillains than toss it away on getting hooked on hard drugs because that's one fight you can't win. And I can just imagine, you know, teenagers sitting around reading this going, they pull the needle out of their arm. They scatter the Coke dust off the table. And they said, you know what? Spider-Man is right. I will never do drugs again. I honestly don't understand the mentality, but that doing this makes a difference in anybody's life. But that's beside the point.
Do you disagree, George? Do you? I don't know. I don't think it's. I don't know if it's a bad thing. I don't think if kids like to be pandered that way. I don't know.
I think this was
the times.
Yeah, it's the times, but I think this is actually a legitimate thing though, because kids back then, especially, and for reasons we talked about last month about how, you know, Stan Lee wanted Spider-Man to be a teenager that wasn't a sidekick. You know, teenagers looked up to Spider. I think Spider-Man, out of any superhero, was idolized probably more than any other superhero at the time.
Yeah.
You know, by young people.
Biggest heroes on college campuses. Yeah.
Yeah. So I see where the intended, you know, impact would have a better chance than if it was Superman going, don't do drugs. You know.
Yeah.
But it just comes across as so, I mean, it's just so blatant and obvious here. It's more effective actually when it's an integral part of the story.
Plus,
you know, when Harry overdoses.
Plus when Harry overdoses, I mean, like a lot of times these drug stories, if they were trying to be told back in the day, were a lot more generalized. So and so feels sick, that kind of thing. With Harry, it's very specific. Harry's freaking the hell out, and it's not just being sick. I mean, like he is mentally breaking down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then subsequently Norman as well.
So anyway, so Peter, you know, after he decides to, you know, preach to the kids of America, he says, you know what, I need to dig out that powder blue suit that I've been wearing since before there was an Amazing Spider-Man, since Steve Ditko was actually dressing me. You know, since Steve Ditko was actually using that as the suit for an archetype of Peter Parker back in, you know, the pre-Spider-Man days. There was an archetype of Peter Parker wearing a powder blue suit. So anyway, so they all go to the theater, and the strangest thing is Mary Jane is coming on to Peter. And it's like, well, this is kind of, you know, both Peter and Mary Jane, of course, Harry, something's, you know, are sensing that something is really wrong. Anyway.
Look at that caption. Sure, lover. I just wanted to make sure that Pete found his seat. Don't worry, MJ, I'm a big boy. Don't I know it? That's just kind of...
You're jumping ahead just a little bit here because Randy Robertson shows up because they're waiting for Randy. All right. Now, this is the 70s. Okay. So Randy shows up and he says, did you hear what happened? Spider-Man just saved some freaked out cat a few blocks away. And yeah, what about that? Then Randy goes, man, this drug scene really bugs me. Everyone figures it's the black man's bag, but it ain't, you know. And then it hurts us more than anyone else, you know. But it ain't our problem, just our problem. It's yours too. And of course, Norman is hip. Okay, Norman is really hip. Don't look at me, son. I know where it's at.
You go, Norman.
Yeah. And of course, Norman's wearing his green suit.
Yeah. Well, he gets in a little argument with Randy, doesn't he?
Yeah. You know, and Randy says, "Oh, you know where it's at. You sit all day in your ivory tower counting your bread. What have you done to fight drugs?" So anyway, so Norman just doesn't take too well to this young man mad mouthing him,
Yeah.
so you're starting to get the, and then of course, again, then as we see, Mary Jane is flirting with Peter again,
Yeah.
and they see Mary Jane for the first act of the show, and they walk out. It's kind of funny, Harry says, "Hey, Dad, what do you think about it? Well, isn't she all I said said she was?" And Harry goes, "Harry, my boy, if I were 20 years younger," which is kind of ironic because it's like he couldn't have the redhead, so I guess he does the blonde. When
She got the blonde.
He did the blonde earlier, but then guess what, George? What does Norman start getting?
The meat sweats.
The crazy sweats. The crazy sweats.
The crazy Norman Osborn meat sweats.
So anyway, so Norman is from there on. Norman is just completely spaced out, and the reason for that is because he was near one of his hideouts, and he just.
Well, if you think about it, Norman's on drugs in this issue too. He's got the goblin serum in him. The whole Osborns are drugged up.
Well, the Osborns are addictive personalities.
Yeah.
And Norman's drug is power. Money, power,
and the goblin serum too.
Well, yeah. Well, see, this is it. This is what I'd never liked the idea that the goblin serum made Norman crazy, or the goblin serum drove him to what he was. The goblin serum. I mean, if you give a madman superpowers, he's even going to be a greater madman.
Right.
But Norman was evil before that. The goblin formula gave him the basis for now I have the means to completely defy society's conventions.
Okay.
I didn't before. I had to behave before, but now I have the power. I don't have to behave anymore. So, but no, the Osborns are addictive personalities. I mean, that's why they it's kind of funny. That's why they fall very, they fall very hard in love too. Harry always, Harry just fell head over heels for Mary Jane, for Liz, Norman for his first wife, for that nurse at one time. People probably thought that, it was out of character for Norman to fall so hard in love with that nurse, but it made sense to me. I mean, that's the Osborn personality. But anyway, so Norman, obviously, because he's, he has hideouts all over the city, and he started to remember. And so, of course, Peter notices it as well, that something's wrong with Norman.
Got the meat sweats.
Of course, the last, a classic, worthy of a poster.
No doubt. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Man. It's perfect. It's just a great. I just remember it's one of those times. There are a lot of times where you really can't wait to see the next issue.
Oh yeah, you had to wait 30 days for this one, JR.
I know, and it was like because I was reading. This was Marvel Tales. I first saw this in Marvel Tales.
Oh, I was thinking you might have picked it up off the rack.
Not quite. I didn't start picking up Spider-Man regularly until issue 134.
Okay.
But I do remember having issue 100, and I lost that in a move. But no, I started getting this in Marvel Tales. But no, it was just and I'd always loved the Green Goblin. Obviously,
right.
I mean, this was the original Green, and so this it was a great picture. It was just everything because. I mean, he addresses him as Parker. Parker. Just right there, he knows who he is, and that was always one of the cool things about the Green Goblin is because he knew. So anyway, that was part one.
Part 297.
Yeah, part two starts off really kind of with a fairly, it just the conventional. Actually, we go about how many pages do we go here? About 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got about 6 pages of where the story just kind of comes to. Well, I mean, it's a big fight. Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, they got to fight. And that was, kind of was one of the reasons I think that Spider-Man 3, the movie, never quite got off the ground from the beginning. And it's always one of those things where I thought, Sam Raimi's a smart guy. Why didn't he get this? And because at the beginning he had Peter Parker fighting Harry Goblin, and it should have been Spider-Man fighting Harry Goblin. I mean, it took way too long for Spider-Man to appear, and it took way too long for Spider-Man to fight the Goblin, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, so actually, Norman, for whatever reason, thinks that Spider-Man has fallen to his death. But obviously he hasn't. So anyway, Peter's going, moping. It's like, God, what do I do? I mean, he's out, he's loose, he knows who I am or whatever. And then he starts thinking about Gwen. And the thing is,
look at those floating heads of Gwen guilt.
No, they're not floating. See, they're grounded. They're all
Well, they're
three
grounded because she fell. Actually, no, wait a minute. She's not dead yet. Never mind. I'm sorry. I jumped. I jumped a
Anyway,
lot.
So these are the grounded heads of guilt. Anyway, so Peter says, well, here's, what I need to do is because I need to go take my shirt off and wash and brush my teeth. I was hoping Jared would read Darwin's dialogue from the last page of.
Do you want us to go back? Okay. The fans demand it.
It's like I only usually try to do the Norman dialogue when I can be funny because I don't think I do that great of a job. It's not like I do a flawless impersonation, but anyway.
Here, give me a minute. I'm almost to the page. I had to go back. I'm sorry.
I can't do it that loud. My wife is probably in bed, and if I do it, I'll get a text that'll tell me to be quiet. So.
JR, you need the crazy sweats.
Okay. Okay, here it is, JR.
Parker, you
damn it.
dare come here. Well, I can promise you this. You'll never leave alive. So, anyway, there you go.
There you go. The fans demanded it. They got it.
So, anyway, so Peter says, the only way I can alleviate my stress is to take my shirt off and brush my teeth so I can, stare at my abs while I'm brushing my teeth. I mean, that's exactly what it looks like. I mean, it's like, and so Peter walks around, with a shirt off and, look at them abs. Of course, Harry's all stressed out, because Harry thinks that Peter is trying to, flirt with Mary Jane, and Peter's pretty well making it like, I don't even know what they're talking about, dude. She's the one who came on to me and I had no interest in her, blah, blah, blah. But then Harry starts popping the pills. And in this case, he's doing uppers and downers is what's happening. Because, Peter says, he has pills to keep him up and to relax sleep. And I think the modern day equivalent, has Harry snorting coke. I think when Lee Weeks did Death and Destiny, Harry was going around, sniffing, but anyways, but right now he's doing a combination of uppers and downers. Of course, Peter says, well, boy, this is really, a downer. So I guess if I'm going to, I need to stop staring at my abs while I'm brushing my teeth, and I need to put on my chains, and that'll make me feel a lot better if I put on my chains. So Brad, go to the next page or whatever.
The chains.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Peter.
Because it's like,
Wow.
it's like, and Mary Jane goes, I dig those chains, Petey. And Peter says, yeah, Mr. T had a garage sale, and I thought I'd pick a few up. So
This is before the world knew who Mr. T was.
Yeah. Man, they have matching chains. It's almost like Mary Jane and Peter are matching right here. Look at that. Wow.
I mean, there's just nothing like chains on a, there's nothing like chains on a square white mama's boy, I mean,
By the way, the drug dealer, I don't mean to jump ahead, but kind of looks like Stan.
yeah, he's hanging there. Yeah.
I mean, he
looks like Stan.
Doesn't he look like Stan Lee a little bit from the 70s? Maybe.
Never really crossed my mind.
I don't think Stan was blonde.
I know, but it just kind of looks like Stan. I don't know. Okay, sorry.
Wow, Stan, I mean, the man hasn't been dead a year, and you're already associating him with a drug peddler. What kind of horrible?
This panel really looks like Stan.
What kind of a horrible human being are you?
I'm sorry. Don't speak ill. Sorry.
Isn't Brad okay? Look, I mean, fans, isn't Brad being a horrible human being? So, anyway, so of course, Mary Jane is, flirting with Peter again, and obviously deliberately trying to get under Harry's skin. And I used to wonder, it's like, boy, is this, Mary Jane's a pretty horrible person for doing this. She probably didn't use the best judgment. But my guess is this is the only way she felt she could get Peter's attention. She's desperately trying to get Peter's attention. And she knows he's Spider-Man. She didn't know, she didn't then, but she does. We know she did now or whatever. But I just think that, and being 18 years old, she just isn't using any sense in how she comes. Plus, when does she ever see Peter? Now I think about it, it's kind of like, I think I was writing when I did my Harry Osborn articles. I think I was kind of trying to explain away Mary Jane's rather behavior. It's like Peter's never around. you can't call him. I mean, back then they didn't have cell phones, so she can't get a hold of him. And so she has to catch his attention the only way she knows how, and when she sees him, and just by making this, that's the way I, rationalize it, I suppose.
Mhm.
Because I think some people use it as an example of, well, how Peter really didn't deserve Mary Jane because look, she's a tramp. Well, no, she's not a tramp. She's a kid that's trying to cry for help. Anyway, so Harry walks away and his drug dealer says, "Oh man, I saw that scene, dude. Oh, you know what you need, dude." Yeah, you need a little of these.
Oh. Some ibuprofen? Is that what he needs? What did you just shake? Some Tylenol?
JR's Viagra.
Oh my gosh. JR's he tried to flush it down the toilet but couldn't get the lid down. Yeah.
George, I'm married. I had my 2 kids.
Oh,
I have no need for Viagra anymore. It wouldn't matter.
It's more like Spider Confession instead of Spider History.
And I'm glad I never got married.
Douglas, when you've been married 30 years, we'll see how you feel.
I'm halfway there. I've been married 15 this year.
I'll be dead.
Yeah,
I've never been married for 30 years. That'd put me at 77, JR.
Yes, Adam, those are the Mad Goblin's pills.
So anyway, so Harry's got to Harry's got to have his pills. Harry's got to have his pills.
Yeah.
So anyway, Peter changes to Spider-Man, decides he's going to try to find Norman. Norman obviously is doing goblin-y stuff, so he's not hanging around Oscorp. And then Harry tries to make up with Mary Jane, and of course Mary Jane is not having any of it. And I always thought this was funny that Harry says, "That's right, it's a great day and I feel zingy," which Mary Jane, when Harry says that, Mary Jane knows exactly what that means. Mary Jane knows that Harry's a drug addict, knows flat out that he's a drug addict. And she knows from personal experience with her father being an alcoholic and other things that people, when they're under the influence, are not it's a now I'm sounding like a 70s comic book myself. It's a bad scene. So Mary Jane puts him down hard. I mean, that's the only way she knows how to get some sense into him and get him some help. Maybe she felt like she's enabled him. I don't know. Maybe she's been to a few parties with him. I mean, because when you think about it, this was the 60s and the 70s. And now Peter, you can see not going to parties because Peter was just out of it. He was Spider-Man, and not only that, but he just wasn't the type. But I mean, to be honest, if you look at this through a modern day lens, Flash, Harry, Mary Jane, Gwen, they probably were all. I mean, Gwen being a police captain's daughter, do you think she was really always a good girl? She probably chafed at the idea of being the police captain's daughter, and so they probably were all doing drugs and whatever. But anyway, so Harry goes back and he's ready to take Peter's head off, but Harry, Peter basically tells him, go blank yourself. It's like, I'm not, I mean, he does. He just says, I got my own problems. This is a mess of your own making. You take care of it. So Harry decides to throw him out, but then he doesn't mean it. And Harry realizes he's I don't mean it. I'm just effed up. Yeah. But like any drug addict's response, I mean, he's up and down and up and down. So he's in a down phase now. So he needs to take his uppers to get back. And of course, you just know that something's going to go wrong. And that plays out over the next couple of pages is that Harry ODs. And so Peter says, I got to get you to the hospital. Well, guess who shows up? Like any good supervillain does.
Yes, right near the end.
Or father.
Don't you think I'd find you, Parker? Do you expect the Green Goblin to let Spider-Man live? So,
yeah.
Anyway, so then we go to part
next
3.
Issue, another good tease, right?
Yeah. No, I mean both great cliffhangers. And they immediately pay off too. I mean, the first time they have a 6-page fight, the second time, Norman crashes in, threatens him or whatever, but then Peter tries to reach Norman the only way he knows how. He's, it's like Norman look what's happened here. We got to get your son some help. And that reaches, I mean, for those of you, I mean, there are people who don't. Norman loves Harry, but he just doesn't know how to be a father. And it's just
2000 Man Reborn wants to know, why are Harry and Peter even friends?
Well, they both, it's kind of funny. I mean, you wouldn't expect like the poor kid from Queens, and then the rich kid from the rich kid from West. Well, I think Westchester is where the Osborns lived or something. Norman was from Connecticut, but they lived in Westchester. Because they weren't friends, but when Peter reached out to Harry when Harry was, it goes back to issue number 39, because Harry had always been on Peter's ass. He'd been trying to fit in with Flash and the cool kids. Of course, Harry was walking around wearing a bow tie. So I guess the only way he could figure he could fit in was, by picking on the odd kid. But Harry had a confrontation with Norman, and Peter reached out to him, and Harry, just appreciated it. And then when Norman got sick again, and Peter went to check on him, which of course Peter was just trying to make sure he wasn't going to be the Green Goblin again. Right. Harry realized he's not, and see Norman, and this is my theory. Norman didn't trust Harry to be on his own. Again, this is my theory. This is what I wrote about in my articles, the Goblin Prince articles. Ultimate Norman was I did not care for Ultimate Norman. I didn't care for the Ultimate line period.
Actually, Zach, I like Zach's point. Norman loves Harry. He didn't like him though.
No, he didn't. He didn't understand him. Yeah, he didn't understand him. I mean, it's like, and this is why I've always. I hesitate. I've always been drawn to the Osborn family dynamic, is because Harry looks up to Norman and wants to be like Norman, but Norman doesn't understand him. Norman is driven by demons. Norman's issues outweigh Harry. I mean, in his own mind, and so Harry is a very, very needy, very sensitive boy. Lost his mother at an early age. Norman can't relate to any of that. I mean, Norman, his father was a vicious alcoholic. His mother was weak, probably died early herself. And so Norman's the only way, and Norman overcompensated by being a son of a bitch. But Harry's not a son of a bitch. And Harry can't do that. He can't build that wall of steel around himself like his dad did. And he needs help. He needs to reach out. He needs nurturing. Norman has no idea how to deliver that. No idea whatsoever. And like I said, it's always kind of funny, I was growing because, my father was a good man or whatever. He had his flaws or whatever, but it just, he didn't understand me. He didn't understand, this little nerdy kid he had. My dad was a hunter and a fisher and athlete and things of that nature, and his firstborn kid is his nerdy little twerp, and he didn't understand that. I mean, we liked baseball. That's how we talked. It was like the Daniel Stern character. And then I grow up and I have a son of my own, and I'm trying to relate to him. It's like I'm trying not to make some mistakes that my father did. So I've always kind of been drawn to that.
Sounds like you and your son have more in common though, because you both like Spider-Man. Yeah,
we do. But I've been around my son more. That was the thing.
Okay. I see.
My father did shift work at a power, and I would go weeks without seeing my father. And so when I did see him, it was like a stranger in the house, and I had to kind of we had to redefine our relationship every time, because it was like these big gaps of time. So anyway, but I saw my son a lot more. So, anyway, but so Norman loves him, but he doesn't understand him. He doesn't understand him. He doesn't understand his needs. He doesn't understand his weaknesses. So anyway, that's it. So so he sees that the state that Harry's in, and it kind of reaches him, and he goes flying out of there so he doesn't have to deal with it.
So we're tackling ASM 98 now, the last issue, right?
Right. Last issue. Anyway, let me get I better wrap this up. I'm about to run out of dew. So yeah, anyway, so Harry gets carted off to the hospital. We go back to London, and of course Gwen, we go back to Gwen, and Gwen is like, "Oh, I miss Peter. I guess I shouldn't have ran away like a whiny little bitch, and and say, what right did I have to be angry at Peter because he didn't propose marriage to me?" And I'm thinking, why didn't he propose marriage to you? Because you're only 19 years old.
That and because you're bipolar.
Exactly. I mean, really, Gwen was kind of up and down a lot.
Gwen was the craziest person. I mean, aside from Norman, Gwen's the craziest person in Spider-Man.
But the reason she is because she had been pregnant, and that's how I rationalize. I mean, when I wrote
so she's hormonal right here, right? She's had sex with Norman, right?
She's had a baby. Okay,
she's had a baby. Okay, my God.
Again, this is trying to make. This is why I used to love to do my articles, is because I sometimes you really could stitch these things to where they almost made sense.
Send your angry fan mail to spidermancrawlspace@gmail.com.
Don't do
so
that.
The way I interpreted it was, after Norman saved, because really Gwen started becoming a whiny girl when Captain Stacy got into the picture. She wasn't a whiny girl under Ditko, but really what happened when Romita brought her, when Romita took over, that a lot of the characters' edges started to disappear, because under Ditko everybody was edgy. Everybody was, and really, that was when you saw the difference between issue 38 and 39. A switch was flipped.
Mm-hmm.
Because Peter hated Ned Leeds in issue 38. Issue 39, he makes up with him. Harry Osborn's on Peter's ass all the time.
Wow.
Up to issue 38. Issue 39, they start talking to each other. It was a lot of it was respect. I think a lot of it was reflecting Ditko's worldview, and where everybody is in a state of anger.
Also, Stan got control of the character a little bit more, because Ditko was doing much of the plotting, is what I've heard from history. Yeah,
Ditko was doing a lot of the plotting, so it was kind of, I think, reflecting. And so when Romita came in,
Stan more hands-on.
Stan took more control over how the characters were presented.
Yeah.
Romita had a very romance, like I said, Romita's background was romance comics.
Right.
But after that, but Gwen was still a pretty strong person too. She was a science major. The first date that she and Peter went on was to go see the Nullifier. And of course the guy who drove him there was Professor Warren.
Right.
But it was when Captain Stacy kind of came in that she started to become this whiny, crying daddy's girl. To me, and I think Stan got lazy. I think Stan. I mean, really. I think once he got Peter into college, and once he got past the number 50 or what, I think he started getting lazy. I think he started running out of gas.
Yeah, when Gwen first appeared, she was like a sardonic smartass.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I always thought she kind of looked Vulcan-like almost. Ditko drew her with like the pointy eyebrows, and she tried to slap Peter once. So I reckon it was, Norman saved Gwen's life in issue 61, not long after that, and so really from the issues like 70s, 80s, she's pregnant. So she's got all that going. And then in the 90s, she has the baby, and then Captain Stacy dies. So in that, with all that going on, her behavior in that context makes sense.
Yeah.
But obviously it was written originally and planned originally. No, I mean, she was written like a crazy person. So anyway, she decides to go back home. And so Peter's on campus, gone to school, and he so happens to see Harry's drug dealers. Yeah. It's like, it is a pretty satisfying moment, because Peter doesn't think, oh, I'm too good for any of this, I'll just walk away. Peter's thinking, you know what? I would really hate to walk out of here and not kick these guys' ass.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he says. It's like, what does he say?
It's not what he says.
No, he says, I don't want to give myself away by beating them too easily, but I couldn't live with myself if I didn't let them have it. So he pretty well,
there's the panel he's talking about.
Yeah, he pretty well gives him a well-deserved beat down. So Of course, and then of course we get more preachifying now because we go to the Daily Bugle, and Jonah, of course, finds out that Harry Osborn is OD'd, and is it a story, and is it something that he should print? Because Norman's a friend of Jonah's and he's a big advertiser. And Jonah goes, I don't like this, Robbie. And of course, Robbie, nobody likes it. Drugs are a bad scene. And then, so Jonah says, I wasn't going to squash the story, Robbie, but how do we run with it? How do we deal with it? And Robbie goes, I got it all figured out. I'm showing that drugs aren't just a ghetto hang-up. They hit the rich the same as the poor. It's everyone's problem. We've all got to face it. And then Jonah, well, just don't stand there, man. Almost like DeForest Kelly in the Deadly Years. Well, don't just stand there. Spot, get cracking. Well, just stand there, man. I want it in the next edition. So anyway, we get that preachifying done. Spider-Man goes out looking for the Goblin again. Finds exactly what he's looking for. And so they fight. Norman throws another pumpkin bomb at him, which, takes away his ability to crawl on walls and things of that nature. But then Spider-Man runs out of webbing. But he decides, well, you know what? I'm just going to solve this problem, a good old-fashioned way. So he jumps on the Goblin, puts his arm, gives him a big chokehold, and steers him off to see Harry in the hospital, and says, if this doesn't knock some sense into Norman, I don't know what will.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it doesn't. I mean, Norman sees essentially what has happened. What really, in a way, what his own years of neglect have done to his son. Yeah. I mean, it's just Norman knows in the back of his mind he's not been a great father. But again, like I said, he doesn't know how to be a father. He doesn't know how. It was funny, like in the original Amazing Spider-Man 39 that Stan wrote, how Harry was saying that Norman was a great guy and that they were friends. But as you saw, it wasn't that way. Norman would take him to a baseball game, but he wouldn't talk baseball with him. Norman would buy him a bike, but he wouldn't teach him how to ride the bike. So Norman's idea of being a parent, being a father, was buying him shit. That's going to take care of it. And he didn't meet any of Harry's emotional needs. So, Robbie and Jonah stayed. What is Zach doing? Wait a minute. When did Zach join us?
He came about halfway. Yep.
But he skipped out on Friday Night Fights. He skipped out on the Mary Jane story that we did, and he skipped out on the Zeb Wells. Is Zeb Wells really Nick Spencer mystery?
No, classic. This Spider-Man classic.
And then he just shows up here. I mean, it's good to have you, Zach, but where were you earlier? So, but and really, I mean, part of the reason here, I mean, again, Harry's. To me, anybody who, I don't know, people who get themselves in this situation, and I know what I'm talking about. I remember someone once trying to lecture me on alcoholism once. It's like, I just absolutely freaked out on it. It's like, you have any idea who you're talking to? It's like, because he thought I'd like, because I said, that people are ultimately responsible for their own decisions, and anyway, so kind of like the guy who wanted to lecture me on religion. Forgetting that, I'd spent 40 years as a fundamentalist Baptist, and I had pretty goddamn good idea what religion was about. Right. But anyway, that's beside the point. So Harry, so anyway, Norman sees what has happened to Harry, and he snaps. And so we know what's going to happen now. He strips off the Green Goblin. Norman's going to forget. And Norman's going to be this wonderful guy again until Amazing Spider-Man number 121, 122.
Oh, is this we don't see Norman? We don't see Norman till 121.
We see Norman briefly a couple of times, but until like issue 119, I think Harry's starting to fall off the wagon again.
Okay.
And then Harry ODs again.
Yeah.
That time with LSD. He takes LSD. So anyway, last page. Peter's going, I miss Gwen, and then I hear her voice calling me, but it's really her. And I always wondered if anybody, I don't know anybody who, well, I know I do know somebody whose name, I work with somebody whose name is Gwen. I'm going to have to ask her if anybody has called her Gwendy, because Peter calls her Gwendy.
My mom's name is Gwen, and no one calls her Gwendy.
Nobody calls her Gwendy.
No,
it's yeah, I just kind of wonder. So anyway, so we have this big smooch scene, blah blah blah, happy ending, but that Boys and Girls was the drug. That Boys and Girls was the classic drug issues. It's a famous story. Is it?
Yeah.
It's a classic story. Is it a great story? It's good. It's okay, but it doesn't add any more dimension to Peter and Norman's relationship, really. But I don't know. Maybe it does. Because ultimately,
I think it does.
Ultimately, I guess it does because ultimately it kind of feeds into another reason that Peter and Norman were at each other's throats later on is each other's perception of how the other failed Harry. And because Peter was a pretty shitty friend, to be honest.
And it's a good mixture of superheroics and private life with Peter Parker. Both are interacting really well. And
I just kind of
he defeated the villain by showing him what's happening to his son.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
to me, the amnesia thing was just tiring. I mean, the amnesia thing was tiring. Norman. I mean, what is Norman doing as the Green Goblin during this time? He's, back before he gets revealed as Norman Osborn, he's a crime lord. He's taken over organized crime and things of that nature. And after this, he's just kind of playing dress up, and so really, in a way, it was a good thing that Norman went away for a couple of decades.
Yeah.
Until other writers, newer writers, kind of were able to bring him back and make him more relevant and give him other things to do. But this is, like I said, this is kind of Norman gets amnesia, Goblin gets amnesia again.
Yeah.
So,
like you said, you read this in Marvel Tales, so you didn't read it firsthand.
No.
So when you started reading Spider-Man, Norman was dead. You fell in love with the legend of Norman when he was dead, right?
Yeah. It was kind of. I mean, it was spectacular. Like I said, it was actually King Size Spider-Man #9.
Yeah.
But no, it just was a cool character. But yeah, the fact that he was dead though was kind of cool because his evil was so pervasive.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, he didn't have to come back.
No.
Because in like Spectacular #200, which by the way is the very last story in this is a classic. I mean, this is a must-have for any Green Goblin fan or even a Spider-Man fan because
it's got Spec 200. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's got Spec 200. I mean, it has a couple of classic Ditko issues, but it has the drug issues, it has the death of Gwen Stacy, and then it has the death of Harry Osborn.
So that's like the best of Harry is what that trade is.
Well, best of the Goblins. Before Norman's resurrection.
Okay.
But it's got most of the great Goblin stories.
Cool.
So anyway, but no, it's was this a good month, JR? Well, of course it was. I mean, it's the Green Goblin classic story.
Is this top 10 Green Goblin stories?
Well, I'm trying to think. It's not one of my favorites. I mean, to be honest, the death of Gwen Stacy is not one of my favorite Goblin stories. I mean, to me, my favorite Goblin stories, when he comes back at the end, Peter Parker 75, that's my favorite. Citizen Osborn is a favorite of mine.
Wait a minute, which one's Citizen Osborn?
Spectacular 250.
Oh yeah. You've talked about that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, the Spectacular Spider-Man 2, King Size Spider-Man, that ranks higher than the drug stories. I mean, it's in the top 10 Green Goblin stories, but it's certainly not anywhere near being my favorite. Yeah. And as Zach says, Norman Spector hanging over the series was great. But the problem was though, if Harry, the thing is, once they killed Harry,
where do you go?
You have to have an Osborn, because the hatred of because. And then see with Harry dead and Norman came back, then Harry's death fed part of Norman's psychosis. But when Norman was dead, Norman's death fed part of Harry's psychosis.
And now they're both alive.
and no story point is being made whatsoever.
Yeah,
that's why I hope that Harry is kindred, to be honest. I hope that reverses. I think it's better off. I think the Osborn story works better if one of them is dead.
Really?
I mean, I do. I mean, I think it works. It works because part of the reason Norman and Peter hate each other is because of how each of them feels the other has failed Harry.
Right.
Norman thought Peter was a shitty friend, which he was, and Peter thought Norman was a shitty father, which he was.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, there you go, boys and girls. That one of the classics on spider history.
George, what was the first time you read this book? What were your thoughts on it?
It was in
Marvel Tales also, or
I actually bought the issues.
oh, okay.
This was 84, 85, around there, 83 to 85, somewhere. I bought them at a flea market.
Oh, okay.
Over in Fort Worth, and I didn't know what they were at the time. I didn't know that they were a big thing or anything. I remember I bought them because they had the Green Goblin on the cover, and I thought the Green Goblin was a cool.
And those covers are classic.
Yeah, they are. And so yeah, they were relatively cheap at the time. I don't know how much. I'm pretty sure they're worth something now. I mean, I remember when I sold my collection, they sold for pretty good, but I don't remember what they sold for. But yeah, I remember buying them for what at the time felt like it was pretty cheap.
Yeah.
I remember I bought 121 and 122 at a flea market for fairly cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So
did you like the story when you read it?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. Well. All right, that is Spider History 2. We got 3 Goblin classics in this one for you for May. There you go. All right.
You got your money's worth, kids.
You did.
It's almost 3 a.m. for JR.
Oh my God.
It is, yeah.
We've been doing this a long time. Facebook, YouTube, a couple questions real quick, then we're going to wrap it. Imagine Normie Osborn being the big goblin after Harry.
Brad, you got a reply back on Discord, by the way.
Oh, I did. Okay. I'm glad you said that because I wouldn't have.
I know.
Let's see here. Yeah, I think DeFalco, when DeFalco did Spider-Girl, he started that. And I don't know if that was his intention, was that Normie would turn away from that and become a good guy or whatever, or if he maybe started going with the Goblin thing. And you know what, it's played out. But I actually kind of like what he did with Normie, is that after issue 25 of Spider-Girl, Norman did not, he didn't want any part of it anymore. And I think it would have been a mistake to have the grandson do it.
I liked Phil Urich, Green Goblin.
I did like him though in the Your Vows, Renew Your Vows, because he was like an evil little Charlie Brown. So I liked that. I didn't like him being a goblin, but I liked
Phil Urich Goblin or Hobgoblin. No, he was Green Goblin. He was the hero. Yeah.
I like how Adam says, I like Phil Urich, Green Goblin. Then they made him a cheap wacko. No, Dan Slott made him a cheap wacko.
That's right.
Yeah. That was one person. That was Dan Slott.
Yeah.
And so Jonathan says that trade is JR's reading list, evidently. Oh yeah, Zach has painstakingly gone through every Friday Night Fight, every Spider History, and if you go to the front page, you can easily click them now. If you drop down off of the podcast, you can see here. You know what I should do? I should share my screen and show the hard work. Hold on a second. I will show everybody this. Okay. There we go. Okay. So if you go to podcasts, you go to Spider History, you're going to see every Spider History that, well, Zach, did I mess up? Well, because the last one was not February 11th, 2019. But anyway, he's categorized a lot of them if you want to see them. And also, if you click on Friday Night Fight, let's see. Well, that's 2014. Zach, am I doing something wrong?
Damn right you call Spider-Man.
Damn right. That's from 2015.
Whoever wrote that sounds really cool.
Stegron Saturday from 2014. That's a wrap. Oh, I remember that. Didn't we take a whole day and
Yes, by we you mean me? Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't released it yet. What are we talking about, Zach?
We did that, and then we did Oh, he's saying that you have the March thing. The March thing is not available.
The what?
Is it because it's gated behind Patreon?
No,
No, I don't know.
I don't know either.
I was about to say I didn't really address the questions that why did Harry and Norman were friends, and I tangented. I think Norman, the reason they started rooming together, Norman didn't trust Harry on his own, and my philosophy was that Norman, Harry wanted his own place. Norman wanted to accommodate him, but Norman did not trust him on his own. Too many, hot-headed, red-blooded Harry alone by himself with, in the presence of too many young, pretty girls, recipe for disaster. So he said, Harry, I'll let you have your own place if you can find somebody responsible to share it with you. And so, I mean, that was my theory. So, so Harry, remembering what Peter had, that Peter had been kind to him after Harry acted like a complete dick to him, said, offered Peter, said, Dad, there's this great guy by the name of Peter Parker. He's a nice guy or whatever. And, he's a smart guy. He can help me with my studies and things of that nature. And Norman said, well, sure. He sounds like a great young man.
So,
of course,
Zach does have the Friday Night Fights. If you click that, and then you can go down from all the Friday Night Fights. Let's see how many pages we've got at the very bottom, George. Oh, the last post is on page.
Okay, what dude
7.
needs to watch Brave and Bold? Random internet weirdo says, dude needs to watch Brave and the Bold.
And that's
Is that like a soap opera?
That's just the podcast too. That's not. Yeah, Brave and the Bold was a soap opera.
Or is that The Bold and the Beautiful?
Oh wait, no, Bold and Brave was the soap opera that.
No, Brave and Bold is
Secret
Batman's.
Hospital was the one.
Is
Mary
Batman's team up book,
Oh, duh.
So why do I need to watch it? Oh, that's right. They did a cartoon series.
and it was a cartoon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. It wasn't the one.
It's
Yeah,
2
what's the
a.m.
one where like he teamed up with Commandy or whatever, and he stuck something up the Statue of Liberty's nose, and Commandy found it 2,000 years later or something like that.
yeah,
And that's just the podcast, Brad. That's not the
right.
not the articles. That's just the podcast
Right.
we started on.
Well, I think these are the articles. If I could be wrong.
What does JR think of Defoe's Goblin
Yeah,
and Raimi's
I think that's
Spider-Man?
right.
Oh, I love Defoe's Goblin. He just he wasn't my idea of Norman Osborn when I first saw him in the role. But the thing is, even though the Spider-Man movie has the Raimi Spider-Man films probably haven't aged all that well, the thing is, Defoe is having a blast. And in an age where, people were, with Sally Field was saying, oh, I don't know why I did those Spider-Man movies. And, and then, Andrew Garfield getting fired from them and just all kinds of things, like some people talking down about the superhero movies. Here you have an Academy Award winning actor who was just having the time of his life dressing up in a stupid ass costume.
Yeah,
And there are interviews, you go back and he considers it a highlight. He loved doing it. He said he liked, it was just, when he took the role, people were saying, are you crazy? And he says, no, look, it's like being in he said, look, he gets to do the high wire stuff. He dressed in a silly costume. He gets to ham it up. He gets
eats
to
the scenery. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why they're watching. He's just
Matt,
having a great time. And that comes across.
Matt wants to know what you think of the arc with Norman owning the Bugle should have ended before the final chapter screwed it up.
Oh, that's a good question. See, I wish that had gone on another couple of years because I think that the problem is that the sales of the titles were still going through the toilet. I mean, they were going up, and like Zach is always fond of reminding everybody when he's trying to put a positive face on the Clone Saga, is how great the sales were, and they were the only sales holding up. But the problem is then, of course, they went down the cliff, and even when they brought Peter back, that didn't stop the decline. I mean, they were still, and so that's why Marvel decided they wanted to reboot, which is a shame because I thought DeMatteis was doing a great job with Spectacular. I thought Mackie was doing a great job with Peter Parker, Spider-Man. DeFalco was doing a serviceable job with Amazing. Sensational wasn't any damn good, but that was, 1 out of 4. 3 of the 4 were pretty strong books and had some very interesting subplots going through all of them. So I don't know how it would have ended up. I don't Actually, I was hoping it would end up by the baby coming back, but
Yeah.
that didn't happen either.
Do you have a favorite Green Goblin action figure? You showed a lot of Goblin booty last week of your action figures.
Boy, that's a good question. I've
Do you
got
have
a
the Mego? Do you have the Mego Goblin? That's probably the first.
not have the Mego Goblin.
You need that one.
I know. I need to go find it off. Hey, that's a good question. I have several of them, but some of them I like them for different reasons. The famous covers one, the 8-inch famous covers
Take a
one, is
look.
one of my favorites.
$10. $10 right there.
It is
$10.
re- There's
You got a bid on it though. You got a fight on it.
yeah, but that can't be right. $10 for an old Mego from the 70s.
Well,
if it's any-
there's one bid for $10.
It's out of the package.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Here's
know, but
one out of the package for $224. Oh, he's got
Whoa.
the satchel.
The famous covers figure is a nice figure. Actually,
Oh, yeah, that one.
the large version of remember what were they called? Anyway, when the Spider-Man cartoon first came out, and they had all the little action figures, and then they came up with the larger versions.
You got this one?
No, I don't have that one. I don't have that one.
JR's trying to talk, Brad.
I'm so sorry. I'm squirrel.
But the larger version of that figure from the old cartoon series is a favorite of mine.
Oh, there's also this one.
You may get to finish sometime in the next hour.
Oh, actually, what is it though? Marvel Legends. The Marvel Legends Goblins figures have been pretty good. In fact, I got the. Now, see, I don't have the Energized Spider-Man. That's kind of one of those that, on my bucket list if I had all the money. But it's like I've actually, believe it or not, I've kind of gotten to the age. I've got like a bunch of cabinets full of stuff. I don't need that stuff anymore. It's like I would honestly sell most of my Star Trek stuff if I thought I could get a decent price for it, and if I thought I would sell it to somebody who genuinely wanted it and liked it.
And there you go.
There we go.
All right.
That's sad. That's just sad.
It's 2 a.m. We're into the eBay cruising for action figures phase. I'm going to go ahead and head out.
All right.
JR, we're good to see you. Jomo, take it easy.
You too,
Goodbye.
man.
YouTube chat.
All right, George.
Goodbye, Facebook. Y'all take it easy. Everyone have a good
All
one.
righty.
Bye.
Bye, George.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
can get Goblin's boots or whatever. God, some of those are just sad. Sad.
You've got this one. I
I've got
remember seeing that one.
I've
Yeah.
got that one. Yeah, I've got
Yeah.
that one.
Oh, look at. Oh my.
Yeah.
What is that? I think that's Harry on drugs. Is what that is. Oh,
yeah,
my.
actually, it looks closer to something from Planet of the Apes almost.
Oh man.
Uh,
Oh, that's a cute.
I've
one.
got that. Yeah, I've got that.
Oh, you got this one?
Oh, I don't have that thing. I hate those things. Zubs or whatever, or
Whatever.
Zooms. Those are ridiculous.
This looks like a female goblin.
Yeah, that one's yeah,
ultimate.
yeah. Whoa.
But
Yeah,
Is
definitely.
that a girl?
one's-
This looks
That
like
one's
a girl.
no, I think that one is a they. What do they call them now where they don't have any identities?
Oh, I
You
don't
you don't call them boys or girls or whatever. What is that? You young people, what is that? No, it's not trans. See, there we go. No, wait a minute.
What in the world? Caption this
No, not-
picture, JR.
The guy, it looks like a giant bug who's about to eat the two
Two
spider
spiders, yeah. $30. It's yours.
Oh my god.
Well, we've fallen down the eBay hole. Plush.
There we go. Back up.
What, this one?
There, right there.
That's
that
from
one.
that's from Toy Biz, though. That's
Right, the
90s.
Toy Biz. But I've got that one, but then there's also a larger, they did like what, 8 to 12 inch figures, and I've got that one. So that
From Toy
that
Biz?
one, that,
Oh, not
yeah,
Toy
the
Boz.
Toy Biz Goblins, because it's just a nice, clean, simple. The Marvel Legends with Norman with his
there
mask
you-
off.
There, that one. That's what you're talking
That's
about.
a favorite. That's a favorite of mine. I got that in Denver once. I
It
couldn't.
was a
find
variant too, because I wanted that one. I never could find it.
I saw it once, and I bought it when I saw it. I was in Denver on work, and it was I snatched that pup. I was on per diem money, so I had a little extra cash.
Oh,
so
I had this one. I have this one.
I've got that one. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
got that one.
Yeah.
Now there's a great Green Goblin action figure I don't think has been made yet, to be honest.
What's
A great Green Goblin action figure would be, I've got that one, is just there. It needs to be like with a cloth costume, and you can take his mask off, and it's Norman Osborn. Kind of like the real old Mego Batman used to be. I know most of you don't remember the Migos, but the Migos were great. The Migos in the 70s were great, but because my brother, he had a Batman, and now that's just a repainted Demo Goblin.
Never seen that one before.
Yeah, that's just a repainted Demo Goblin. But he had the original Mego Batman. You could take his mask off, and it was Bruce Wayne.
Oh,
But
I remember this one. This one was a Humberto Ramos Goblin.
Yeah, I've got that one. It's not too bad of a. It's for what it is. It's not too bad of it. I mean, I kind of like the Samurai Goblin look, to be honest. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like him when he's drawn by Humberto, but I just kind of like the idea that Norman would have a little Japanese influence. Maybe he'd watch a Kurosawa or something like that. It's like, you know what? I gotta jazz up my wardrobe.
Oh, look at your little spider friends here. Look at these guys. He's cute.
Oh yeah, I got him. I got him.
You've got him? Oh, that's funny.
Oh, I got him.
I never bought any of these. These were all preschool ones. I thought they were kind of cute.
They were great. I bought Spencer virtually every one of those. The thing is, they stopped. They really were. They were nice, sturdy little toys, and we bought him the play set as well. And they did. They had, I mean, for kiddie toys and kiddie versions of the classics, they were nice, solid little toys with just the right amount of articulation. But they didn't make a Venom character, and it's like that would have been. They stopped them. I don't know why they didn't make a Venom, because that would have been a crowd pleaser.
What the heck is that?
I have never seen that sucker before.
Oh, you hold it like a joystick.
Oh, yeah. I've seen the figure before. I've got the figure, but never the.
And it launches maybe. Well, that's weird.
Yeah,
Never seen that one.
it's just a shame they did the Power Rangers look.
Yeah.
But I'm not so. But then again, I mean, I'm not so sure. I don't know. Like I said, somebody.
Well,
I'm
look
not
who
really
it is.
anxious.
Look who it is.
Oh my God! Say now, see,
Okay.
Hey Zach, since we started talking about toys, you decided to join us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 'cause
I've got
Yeah.
this one. This one's a good one.
So
You got this one?
let me move to
no, actually, I do not have that one.
That's a good looking one. That was like
That is a
Marvel
good looking.
Masterworks, I think, and it recreated that Marvel's cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that Unmasked Norman that you were talking about, that Marvel Legends, that was a KB Toys exclusive.
Mm.
And so that's why you couldn't find him unless you went to KB. The regular edition, which was the mass production, just had the regular head, though it wasn't removable. Now, they've been doing those retro cards that they announced at Toy Fair from the 90s show. One of the rumored characters, there's two that haven't been released yet, and one is Electro and the other is Green Goblin. So I'm hoping they are using a more traditional looking Green Goblin as a result. So we'll see. We'll find out more about that probably San Diego later this year.
JR needs a Goblin shelf behind him, like Brad has a Spidey shelf. I could have a Goblin shelf. I just don't have the
I actually talked to
things
JR
aren't set up down here in the basement to do that.
right over JR's shoulder. I think are some comic book boxes. He has a great looking Alex Ross poster, and I think it'd look so cool over your shoulder if you had an Alex Ross Goblin looking over your shoulder.
This place is due to be cleaned up or whatever. It's just kind of a
Well, you're at home now.
yeah, I am.
Make
Yeah,
the boy
it just-
do it.
Is it,
Yeah, make
yeah.
the boy. I haven't heard
Yeah,
of.
right. Have you ever tried to make a teenage boy do anything?
I haven't
If
heard
you
his
give him
story. Is he playing? Is he reading Spider-Man? Is he playing PS4? Or any Spider-Man connection with the boy?
What is he doing these days?
Yeah,
To be
cool.
honest, it's kind of funny. Where it's kind of funny. I mean, he's ground. I mean, he's not ground. He's at home every day too now because the schools in Ohio are probably going to be closed out for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I don't know what we don't see. Here's the thing. We don't, without ratting him out too much, it's not like we can go to the movies because he has a way of, well, just the other day, like for example, a few weeks ago, I said, "What are you watching?" "Oh, the Sonic movie." "Oh, really?" So I said, "Just be careful, okay, that you don't catch
Oh, look,
anything."
Kelly wearing an Oscorp
Oh.
T-shirt.
Oh my God, I gotta have it.
Here,
Holy cow. Now I'm
Oscorp
instantly
Industries, right there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Where'd you get that?
It was superhero stuff. Sorry, I was like hearing feedback.
Superhero
'cause-
stuff. Oh, let's go there.
.com.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They had a
okay.
April Fool's Day sale. So this was one of the mystery shirts, but they're selling them. So
Here,
I'm not sure if
JR.
that was a mistake.
JR, let's go shopping.
Well,
I
JR,
was about to say, I'll have to tell the family to go prove their love for me and buy me shit.
Green
Yes.
Goblin. Let's search
Okay.
Yes.
for no products found for Green
Jim-
Goblin. Oz.
all right. So
It's like
Yeah.
I've been buying you guys shit,
Oh,
buying you guys
there you
shit
go,
for
George.
decades. Buy me
JR.
shit.
$21.
So, lady and gentlemen, I just wanted to hop on for a couple minutes and say hi, but I got a jet.
Hi.
So.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
Sorry.
All
The
right.
thing is,
I'll see you tomorrow, Zach.
I will see you tomorrow. Yep.
Yep.
That's right.
See
I
you
haven't
later.
bought a t-shirt in a while because I'm not really. They're not very flattering on me as I've aged. I got to get a
Get
big
you this,
one.
JR. It was recommended below.
Yeah.
Actually, Kelly, that looks like that Betty Brant outfit. When
It
we were
really
talking about.
does. It's not low cut enough though.
JR, did you watch the cosplay episode last night?
I haven't yet. I saw
Okay.
that you had it up, but I haven't watched it.
Kelly is wanting to do this outfit for cosplay.
No, I said I am so bored at this point
Oh, yeah.
that I will make this costume.
She wants to do that one. Oh, let me go back.
I am
You-
I am that bored.
If you weren't young enough to be my daughter, I would say go for it. But since you are young enough, to be my daughter, I would say no, young lady, no.
Nah. Where were we? We were shopping for Oz.
Yes.
There's nothing Green
Was
Goblin
Oscorp-
on this.
Apparently it's just this Oscorp shirt because normally I keep wish list, and whenever they have like their sales because they're doing mystery shirts right now, like I'll grab a few pieces. But I think because I had other Spider-Man stuff in my box, they just handed me a bunch of mystery Spider-Man shirts, and this was one of them, which was a good deal.
Yeah, I like it.
So
There you go, JR. You need an amazing dad. I've got an amazing dad shirt.
JR, tell your son to use a VPN. Yeah, I ought to see how he's sailing. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I don't know how you're doing it, but just be careful. I tell him that with girls too. I don't know if he pays attention though.
Church is found for Green Goblin out. Emmett.
Amazing dad. They're only going to think I am when I'm dead, and then it's like, oh yeah, Dad did like do some things, like pay
Aw.
the bills and shit like
there's
that.
another page. Okay, what else we got?
I'm worth more dead than alive though. After because I carry insurance and stuff, so I keep telling my family I'm worth more dead to them than
This
alive.
is cool. Here comes Spider-Man. There goes Spider-Man. That's cute.
Oh, I used to have when I was a very young little boy. There was a little sleeve sweatshirt, and it was here comes and there goes. And my brother had one for the Hulk.
Oh,
It was.
yeah,
and
I remember that.
You would have loved it. You would have loved it, Brad, because the front was "Here
I
comes
got
the
it.
Incredible Hulk," and there goes. But he was pulling along like
Yeah.
a little ducky toy.
I can probably find it. Yeah, there it
Yeah,
is.
the back was he was pulling along a little toy.
Uh,
Yeah, there we go. Right
Yeah.
there. There goes the Incredible Hulk. Yeah, my brother had that.
right up here. Yeah, but it's not pulling up that image. But there's the ducky toy.
Yeah.
Or the bunny.
The bunny
Oh, the
toy.
funny
Yeah,
toy.
Yeah.
there's the front.
Yeah, my
Neat.
brother had that. Yeah.
That's cool.
It's pretty neat.
But that let me go back to that.
But the thing is, though, I mean, those were the only thing. I mean, back in the
$38 for a T-shirt. Good.
Yeah.
they're not. It's always
Wow.
better when they're doing sales. They're not great otherwise.
Wow.
But it's just so funny to see all the stuff that's available, because back in the 70s, before the licensing empire got going, you couldn't find anything. I mean,
Yeah.
a Spider-Man shirt was rare.
Yeah.
A Hulk shirt was even rare. And honestly, before Robert Downey Jr., you couldn't find, there was nothing Iron Man.
No,
I think
yeah.
except for like one plastic figure. There was like a bunch of plastic figures that came out
Mhm.
in the 70s, but it's just awesome to see all the different toys now. And in the 70s, there just wasn't anything.
Oh, here you
Nothing at
go.
all.
JR, get the missus this.
Also, you can find these on Amazon sometimes for
Yeah.
super cheap.
There. Oh, JR, would you
What in the world is that?
Snuggie.
would you fall asleep on the couch in that?
That almost looks like Spider-Man goes to Hogwarts. That's what that looks like. Oh, that looks. Yeah, that doesn't look right.
I've seen they're starting to do the 60s Spider-Man on T-shirts too, and marketing
He's
stuff.
Yep, he's become a meme, and I'm pretty sure he's a character in the new Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of a cool shirt. Where the
Yeah.
through the
That's
black
neat.
suit. That's neat.
If Dan Slott's Spider-Verse had focused on a much narrower range of characters,
Yeah.
including like the 60s, I think the 60s Spider-Man, the Japanese version,
Yeah.
I think it really would have been a fun classic
Yeah.
story.
I mean, I understand. I have my own opinions about all of that, but I'm a huge Mayday
What
fan.
are they?
So, mostly my.
Oh yeah, Dan Slott killed Dad. Yeah.
Well, the
yeah,
thing
but he
is,
got resurrected. So.
in Spider-Geddon, which they, haven't even made a follow-up issue. So all we get to see is that lovely, like, season 6, episode 2 Buffy shot of the hand coming up the grave.
Right.
So that's also not fun, because that kind of, the whole thing presents turmoil that is not indicative of that series and actually does a disservice.
Is that the last time we've seen the Spider-Girl universe?
That is the last time with Spider-Geddon. I think the last official time we saw Mayday was there was an aftermath in Spider-Gwen where she seems to be totally cool once again, like in Web Warriors, because clearly you can't mourn your father. So she's just like helping comfort Gwen, because Gwen gets a whole issue about a fallen comrade, but by all means, no crying over your father. But thanks, Marvel.
The problem is when Spider-Gwen, I guess. I knew the minute that she started showing up on in the licensing that the character was permanent. That was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just it wasn't going to be just a novelty thing anymore. It was going to be a permanent character because they licensed her. Whereas Spider-Girl Mayday never really, other than the famous covers.
Yeah.
I think there was a famous covers of her. Other than that, I don't think there'd be anything.
No, there's been busts. I mean, because she was in her and American Dream were in that long line of children's costumes and birthday stuff for a while in Party City. But what was it? Party City told me that the last time they ever got a shipment of those items were in 2014. So all of the pink and purple tutus and dresses that you still see in Party City, those have been there for years now.
Oh, wow.
For over 6 years. Once they're gone, they're gone. They don't, from what I understand, they don't plan on remaking them. They're going to try and focus more on actual Captain America and Spider-Man because of the MCU movies.
Kelly, you like this?
Not
What is it?
really.
Is it
It's
Spider-Gwen?
Spider-Gwen sweater. The only cute thing from Spider-Gwen I've ever seen, there's like a little button-up sweater, but it's not.
Oh, we've reached the end. There we go.
Yeah, it's not really super spidery. It's just got spider webs and like some flowers on the side. But I don't like the pink and the neon pink and neon blue. It reminds me of like when I was 14, 15, and it is not good.
You don't like the skirt with the suit either. You said.
I mean, I don't, but you know, I don't really know anybody that wears
you're
that.
not leaving the house wearing that, young lady.
No.
What about this for a dog?
That'd be cute.
Hmm.
Hold on, I've got dogs. We can ask opinions.
Oh,
Let's
okay.
see, what do you think? Would you wear it?
Oh.
She's very upset. I woke her up. She's like, "What the heck?" But I don't know. That's cute.
Yeah. Oh, we got 8-bit
Yeah.
Spider-Man over here. What is this? What? Whoa.
Wait. Was that like
Spider-Man-
James Bond? Oh, the dog collar. Oh,
Oh, that's funny.
man, where's Heather?
Oh, I know. Last night we interviewed a Black Cat cosplayer, JR, and she was talking about putting her costume together back in the early 2000s. And for her Black Cat costume, she went to a pet store and got a dog collar for the Felicia's collar
I-
on her neck.
Well,
I mean-
yeah, I mean,
That's
funny.
what I did for my Black Cat.
Yeah.
mhm.
That's
Like
funny.
they're sturdier.
You talk about this one for James Bond. That does look James-
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Well,
different.
All right.
Well, I'm getting tired. What about you all?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
about-
3:17.
Yeah.
What are you doing up, Kelly?
I was watching you guys.
Aw.
Where do you live, Kelly? I mean, without getting too specific or whatever.
Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Near
Yeah, the Eastern
Michael
time
Bailey.
zone covers a lot of space. So
Near
Yes,
Michael
yeah.
Bailey and Ashley.
Mhm.
So,
Mm.
16 viewers. Thank you for sticking with us.
Yeah.
At 9 p.m. My gosh, we got 4
Alrighty.
podcasts recorded tonight.
all right.
yeah.
JR,
All right.
I will see you tomorrow. Kelly,
Right.
you too.
Yep. See you tomorrow.
So,
I'm on tomorrow too, right?
yeah, you are.
Yeah. So
YouTubers Facebook will start again tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. We got 2 issues of Amazing we missed. Have I
Yeah.
assigned who's reviewing those 2?
I don't recall seeing it,
Don't-
but
Would you guys
Yeah.
like to do them?
No,
I'll
Good.
do. I can do one.
I'd rather sit there and just criticize. I don't wanna
Kelly, which one do you
contribute.
want? The podcast one or the one with Chance?
Podcast.
Okay, you can do We'll
Yeah.
start with you, and I'll figure out who can do the next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Adam
right,
Lawrence,
everybody.
Damn, you guys stay up late. Adam, it's all for you. All for fans,
All for you, Adam.
because of fans like you that we do this.
Yeah.
A productive
All right.
and fun night on the crawl space. I'm West
Yeah.
Coast, so it's not hard on me. See you guys tomorrow. Yes.
Good night, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Good night.